Hey guys, tonight we are going to drift back, way back, before written words, before cities, before even the faintest whisper of humanity. Imagine you are floating, not in water, not in air, but in a profound and silent emptiness. Below you, there is no ground. Above, no sky. There is only a slow, quiet, and endless potential, the very beginning of everything. This is the realm of the first gods, the raw, elemental forces that would eventually give birth to a universe filled with meddling deities, questionable heroes, and monsters who were, frankly, just misunderstood. It's a family saga on a cosmic scale, and let's be honest, if you were immortal back then, you probably wouldn't survive the opening credits. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. It's always nice to know who's listening in the quiet hours, so feel free to post your city and what time it is for you in the comments. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You are floating in this pre-cosmic stillness. This is chaos. Not chaos in the way we think of it, a messy room, a hectic schedule, but a vast, yawning void. It is a space of infinite possibility, silent and deep. It's less a being and more of a condition, a state of nothingness that holds the seed of everything. And from this quiet, formless expanse, the first stirrings of existence begin to uncurl. Slowly, without sound or spectacle, something solid begins to form beneath you. It is the wide, comforting presence of Gaia, the earth. She is the foundation, the very ground of being. You can almost feel her deep, steady heartbeat, the slow rhythm of rock and soil and sleeping life. She is the All-Mother, and she is lonely in this vast emptiness. At the same moment she comes into being, so too does Tartarus, a deep and sunless abyss, a pit so far beneath Gaia that a bronze anvil dropped from her surface would fall for a year to reach its depths. It is not a place of punishment, not yet, but a fundamental part of the cosmos, a cellar to Gaia's great house. And then there is Eros, not the chubby baby with a bow and arrow, but the primal force of love and desire. Eros is the engine of creation, the undeniable pull that will draw all these separate beings together. Without Eros, nothing more can happen. Two more entities emerge from the initial chaos, Erebus, the profound darkness, and his sister, Nyx, the night. They are the shadows that fill the void, the quiet, and the mystery. Imagine a darkness, so complete it feels like velvet against your skin. That is Erebus. Imagine the cool, star-flecked blanket of a moonless night. That is Nyx. And drawn together by the inescapable influence of Eros, they create children of their own. From their union of shadow and night, ether is born, the pure, bright upper air that the gods will one day breathe. And then comes Hemera, the day, who will forever chase her mother, Nyx, across the expanse. This is the state of the universe. A flat earth, a deep pit, and a cycle of night and day. But Gaia, the great Earth Mother, feels incomplete. She longs for a companion, someone to cover her, to look upon her in her entirety. So, she creates one herself. With a great, sighing effort, she brings forth Uranus, the sky. He arches over her, vast and starry, a perfect counterpart to her sprawling lands and mountains. He is her equal, and her son, and soon her husband. The sky rains down upon the earth, and life begins to stir in a way it hadn't before. Their union is productive, frighteningly so. Their first children are not the beautiful, human-like gods you might be picturing. They are raw, powerful, and to their father's eyes, monstrous. First come the Centimanes, the 100-handed ones. 3 of them, each with 50 heads, and yes, 100 powerful arms. They are beings of immense, chaotic strength. Then come the 3 Cyclopes, not the savage shepherds of later tales, but master craftsmen. They have a single, blazing eye in the center of their foreheads, and they can forge wonders, harnessing the power of lightning and thunder. Uranus looks at these children, his own offspring, and feels not pride, but a deep, churning fear. They are too powerful, too strange. He cannot stand the sight of them. So, in a move that wins him no Father of the Year awards, he takes his monstrous children and shoves them back into the body of their mother, deep within the hidden places of the earth. He imprisons them in the womb that bore them. Gaia groans in pain, her body stretched and aching from the weight of her captive children. The pressure is immense, a constant, agonizing reminder of her husband's cruelty. This is the first great act of cosmic injustice, a father's fear curdling into tyranny. After the monsters come 12 more children, the Titans. They are godlike in form, beautiful and powerful, but still immense beings of elemental force. 6 sons and 6 daughters, including the thoughtful Oceanus, the bright-minded Themis, who represents divine law, and the motherly Rhea. The youngest, and perhaps most ambitious, is Cronus. Gaia can no longer bear the pain of her imprisoned children or the cruelty of her husband. Her love for Uranus has turned to a slow-burning resentment. She needs a plan. Deep within her core, she forges a new substance, a gray, unearthly metal that cannot be broken. Historians who study the old texts, like Hesiod's Theogony, which gives us the most complete version of this story, call this metal adamantine. From it, she fashions a great sickle, its edge wickedly sharp. She gathers her Titan children around her, her voice low and filled with sorrow. She explains their father's cruelty, the terrible fate of their older siblings trapped within her. She holds up the gleaming sickle. "Which of you," she asks, "will help me punish your wicked father? Which of you will end his reign?" The Titans are silent. They fear their father, the mighty sky. All but one. Cronus, the youngest, steps forward. He is described as having a crooked mind, but perhaps he is simply the only one brave enough, or resentful enough, to act. He takes the sickle from his mother's hand, its cold weight a promise of change. Historians still argue whether these ancient peoples saw these stories as literal truth or as grand allegories. The ambitious son overthrowing the old sky god, just as a new generation's crops replaced the old. Whatever the belief, the story is a powerful one. Gaia hides Cronus in a strategic spot and waits for evening. As Uranus descends, as he always does, to embrace the earth, suspecting nothing, Cronus springs his trap. With one swift motion of the adamantine sickle, he does the unthinkable. He severs his father's connection to the earth, permanently. The act is swift and brutal. Uranus cries out in shock and pain, pulling away from the earth forever, fixed in his place as the distant sky. But the consequences of this act ripple outwards, creating new life from the violence. The drops of blood that fall from Uranus onto the patient earth, Gaia, give birth to the Erinyes or the Furies, dread goddesses of vengeance who will forever pursue those who spill family blood. From the severed parts, which Cronus tosses into the sea, a strange white foam begins to churn. And from this sea foam, a being of breathtaking beauty arises, floating gently to the shore on a scalloped shell. This is Aphrodite, the goddess of love, beauty, and desire, born not from a womb but from a wound. A rather dramatic entrance, even for a goddess. With Uranus banished and his power broken, a new era begins. Cronus is now the king of the cosmos. He and his Titan siblings are the new rulers. He frees the Titans, but in his own fearful hypocrisy, he leaves his monstrous older siblings, the hundred-handed ones and the Cyclopes, imprisoned deep within the earth, moving them to the pit of Tartarus. The cycle of fear, it seems, is not so easily broken. And so you are left in a world now ruled by a new king, one who seized power through violence, and who now carries the heavy weight of a prophecy that says he too will be overthrown by his own son. The stage is set, and the quiet of the cosmos is about to be broken once more. The universe settles into a new kind of quiet under the rule of Cronus. It's a period the old poets would later call the Golden Age, a time when mortals lived like gods, without toil or sorrow. But this peace is a fragile thing, built upon a foundation of imprisoned siblings and a father's gnawing paranoia. Cronus takes his sister, the gentle Rhea, as his wife, and they rule together over a cosmos that seems, on the surface, to be in perfect balance. But the prophecy passed down from his bleeding, vanquished father echoes in his mind. As you have done to me, so your own child will do to you. Fear is a powerful poison. When Rhea gives birth to their first child, a beautiful goddess named Hestia, Cronus doesn't see a daughter. He sees a threat. He sees the sickle and the end of his reign. So he does the only thing his fearful mind can imagine. He picks up the newborn and swallows her whole. Rhea is horrified, but she is powerless against the king of the universe. The same fate befalls their next children. Demeter, the future mother of harvests. Hera, destined to be a queen. Hades, the one who would come to know the darkness well. And Poseidon, who held the spirit of the sea within him. One by one they are born, and one by one they are consumed by their father, imprisoned not in the earth, but in the divine stomach of a tyrant. Rhea's heart, much like her mother Gaia's before her, is breaking. The grief of bearing children only to have them stolen away becomes unbearable. When she finds she is pregnant for a sixth time, she knows she cannot let this one suffer the same fate. She goes to her own parents, Gaia and the distant Uranus, and begs for their help. They have seen this story before. They listen to her desperate plea and devise a plan to save the child and finally bring justice to Cronus. Gaia tells Rhea to travel to the lush and rugged island of Crete. There, in the deep, secret darkness of a cave on Mount Ida, Rhea gives birth to her youngest son. She names him Zeus. The moment he is born, he is whisked away into safety. Gaia herself takes the child, handing him over to the care of gentle nymphs. He is nursed on the rich milk of a divine goat named Amalthea and fed the honey of sacred bees. He is not left to cry alone, for that would surely alert Cronus. A band of warrior spirits called the Curetes are stationed at the cave's entrance. Whenever the infant Zeus would wail, they would perform a wild, clattering dance, beating their spears against their shields to drown out the sound of his cries, a primordial baby monitor powered by rhythmic violence. Meanwhile, Rhea must complete the deception. She takes a long, smooth stone from the mountainside, one roughly the size and weight of a newborn. She wraps it carefully in swaddling clothes, just as she had wrapped her other children. She travels back to Cronus and presents him with the bundle. The king, blinded by his paranoia and not, it seems, terribly observant, takes the bundle without question and swallows the stone in one gulp, proving that even a supreme cosmic being can be duped by the oldest trick in the book, the fake baby. That very stone, known as the omphalos or navel stone, would eventually be placed at Delphi, which the ancient Greeks considered the center of the world, a very real artifact commemorating a mythological deception. Zeus grows to manhood on Crete, hidden and protected. He grows strong, wise, and filled with a sense of destiny. When he is ready, Gaia comes to him. It is time to free his siblings and challenge his father. They need a plan, and for that, they turn to Métis, a daughter of the Titan Oceanus. Her name means cunning wisdom, and she is the cleverest of all the gods. She prepares a special potion, an emetic so powerful that not even Cronus can withstand it. Disguised, Zeus becomes his father's cupbearer. In another version, it is Métis who tricks Cronus. Either way, the potion is mixed into Cronus's wine. He drinks it down, and soon, a great rumbling begins in the pit of his stomach. First, he brings up the stone, the omphalos, which lands with a thud. Then, one by one, his children emerge, not as infants, but as fully grown gods, unharmed by their long imprisonment. Out comes Poseidon, then Hades, then Hera, Demeter, and finally Hestia. It must have been an awkward family reunion, meeting your siblings for the first time as they emerge fully formed from your father's throat. But they are united by a common purpose, vengeance. And so begins the Great War, the Titanomachy, the clash of the gods. It is not a brief affair. For 10 long years, the cosmos is racked with battle. Zeus and his siblings establish their base on the magnificent Mount Olympus. Cronus and the other titans who remain loyal to him, with a few key exceptions like the wise Prometheus, fight from the opposing peak, Mount Othrys. The fighting is cataclysmic. The very foundations of the world shake. Mountains are torn from their roots and hurled as weapons. The sea boils, the forests burn, and the sky itself groans under the strain of their conflict. Scholars still debate whether this cosmic war mythologizes a real-world clash, perhaps the invasion of Hellenic peoples supplanting the older, chthonic deities of the original inhabitants. But the war is a stalemate. The power on both sides is too evenly matched. Zeus, remembering the stories his grandmother Gaia had told him, realizes he has forgotten his most powerful potential allies. He travels down into the black pit of Tartarus, where his monstrous uncles have been imprisoned for eons. He slays their guard, camp, and breaks their chains. He frees the 3 Cyclopes and the 300-handed ones. Gratitude is a powerful motivator. The Cyclopes, masters of the forge, are eager to repay their liberator. They gift Zeus their greatest creations. They harness the very essence of the storm and give him the thunderbolt. To Poseidon, they give a magnificent trident, a weapon that can shake the earth and command the seas. And to Hades, they give the helm of darkness, a cap of invisibility that allows its wearer to move unseen. The tide of the war turns instantly. Zeus, now armed with lightning, ascends to Olympus and unleashes a storm of unimaginable fury. Poseidon strikes Mount Othrys with his trident, shaking the Titan's fortress to its foundations. Hades, cloaked in his helmet of invisibility, moves among the enemy, stealing their weapons and sowing confusion. And the hundred-handed ones, finally unleashed, are a force of pure demolition. Standing on the front lines, they bombard the Titans with a constant volley of 300 boulders at once. It turns out having allies who can throw 300 boulders at once is a significant tactical advantage. Who knew? The combined power is too much. The Titans break. Cronus is overthrown, his reign of fear brought to a final, thunderous end. He and the other male Titans who fought against Zeus are bound in chains and cast down into the deepest, darkest corners of Tartarus, the very prison where they had left their own siblings. And this time, their jailers are the hundred-handed ones, ensuring they will never again threaten the cosmic order. The war is over. The universe is quiet once more, but it is a new quiet. The reign of the Titans is finished. A new generation of gods, tempered by imprisonment and forged in a decade of war, now holds the fate of the cosmos in their hands. You can feel the shift in the air, the dawn of a new age. The age of the Olympians is about to begin. With the Titans locked away in the cosmic basement and the world scrubbed clean by war, it's time to decide who gets to be in charge. Zeus, having led the rebellion, is the obvious choice for king, but he is wise enough to know that simply declaring himself the new boss might lead to the same kind of resentment that brought down his father. So, in a moment of surprisingly democratic thinking, he and his two brothers, Poseidon and Hades, decide to divide the spoils of their victory by casting lots. Imagine them there, the three great gods who have just saved creation. They cast their lots, perhaps drawing stones or marked sticks, to determine their domains. Zeus, by luck or by destiny, draws the longest lot. He wins the sky, the heavens, and supreme authority over all the other gods and mortals. He becomes the All-Father, the Cloud-Gatherer, the King of Olympus. Poseidon draws the second lot, and his prize is the sea. He becomes the Earth-Shaker, ruler of all oceans, rivers, and springs, his moods reflected in the calm or tempestuous nature of the waters. And Hades, drawing the short straw, receives the final realm, the underworld. He becomes the Lord of the Dead, the ruler of a vast, unseen kingdom of shades and shadows, a domain separate from the sunlit world. It wasn't a punishment, but a necessary division of labor. Someone had to manage the paperwork for the deceased, after all. And so, they settle into their new homes. Zeus establishes his court on the cloud-veiled peak of Mount Olympus, a place so high it exists both in and above the mortal world. This is where the 12 major gods, the Olympians, will live, and it's less a celestial paradise and more a high-stakes, high-drama divine soap opera. Zeus takes his sister, Hera, as his queen. She is the goddess of marriage, home, and family, which is deeply ironic given that her husband would become the most famously unfaithful spouse in all of mythology. Their marriage is a cornerstone of the new order, but it is a stormy one, filled with Zeus's endless affairs and Hera's equally endless, and often terrifyingly creative acts of jealousy. The rest of the family fills out the Olympian council. There is Demeter, the kind-faced goddess of agriculture and the harvest, whose moods dictate the seasons. There is Hestia, the gentle, quiet goddess of the hearth and home, the firstborn of Cronus who chose to remain a virgin, tending the sacred fire of Olympus rather than engaging in the constant squabbles of her relatives. You have Aphrodite, who, remember, was born from the sea foam after Cronus's little accident. She is the goddess of love, beauty, and pleasure, and she brings a certain chaotic energy to the mountain. Then there is Ares, the son of Zeus, and Hera, the god of war. Unlike the more strategic Athena, Ares represents the brutal, bloody, and often senseless violence of battle. He's all rage and brawn, not particularly popular with the other gods, and often the butt of their jokes. Another son of Zeus and Hera is Hephaestus, the god of the forge, metalworking, and craftsmanship. He was born lame, and his mother Hera, mortified by his imperfection, threw him from the top of Mount Olympus. He was rescued and raised by sea nymphs and became the most skilled artisan in the universe, forging the gods' weapons, armor, and palaces. He is a brooding, hard-working deity, and in a stroke of cosmic cruelty, he is married to the effortlessly beautiful and perpetually unfaithful Aphrodite. His workshop, located in the fiery heart of a volcano, is a place of constant creation, a stark contrast to the political maneuvering and romantic drama happening up on the peak. It's here that a fascinating piece of real history touches the myth. Bronze Age smiths were often viewed with a mixture of awe and fear. Their ability to transform rock into metal seemed like magic, and they often lived on the outskirts of settlements, their forges spewing smoke and fire, much like Hephaestus in his volcano. And then there are Zeus's other children, born from various mothers. The twins, Apollo and Artemis, children of the Titaness Leto. Apollo is the god of music, poetry, prophecy, and the sun, the golden boy of Olympus, impossibly handsome and talented. His twin sister, Artemis, is the goddess of the hunt, the wilderness, and the moon, a fierce and independent deity who prefers the company of her nymphs in the forest to the politics of the divine court. There is Hermes, the fast-talking, quick-witted messenger of the gods, the patron of travelers, merchants, and thieves. He's the god who can travel between the world of the living, the realm of the gods, and the underworld, making him an essential, if mischievous, go-between. And finally, there is Athena, born not from a womb, but directly from the head of Zeus. After Zeus swallowed her mother, Metis, to prevent a prophecy about a son who would overthrow him, he was struck with a splitting headache. Hephaestus, in a moment of divine field surgery, split open Zeus's skull with an axe, and out sprang Athena, fully grown and clad in armor, shouting a war cry. She is the goddess of wisdom, strategic warfare, and civilization, Zeus's favorite and most trusted child. With the gods settled, their attention turns to the world below. It's time to populate it. The creation of humanity has a few different versions, but one of the most famous involves two of the Titans who sided with Zeus in the war, Prometheus, whose name means forethought, and his brother Epimetheus, whose name means afterthought. Zeus tasks the two brothers with creating the creatures that will inhabit the earth. Epimetheus, true to his name, eagerly starts the job without much planning. He creates all the animals, giving them the best gifts: fur for warmth, claws for defense, wings for flight, speed, and strength. By the time he gets around to the last creature, man, he has run out of gifts. They are left naked, weak, and defenseless. Prometheus looks at the poor, shivering creatures his brother has made and feels a deep sense of pity. He decides to give them something better than fur or claws. He goes to Athena, who teaches him architecture, mathematics, and navigation. And then, he does something forbidden. He sees the sacred fire burning on Olympus, a privilege reserved for the gods. He takes a long stalk of fennel, which has a dry, pithy core that burns slowly, and secretly steals a glowing ember from the god's hearth. He brings it down to earth and gives it to humanity. Fire changes everything. With it, humans can cook their food, forge tools, and stay warm. It is the foundation of technology and civilization. But Zeus, looking down from Olympus, is enraged. Not only did Prometheus defy him, but he has empowered these lowly mortals. His punishment is twofold. First, for humanity, he orders Hephaestus to sculpt a woman from clay, a being of irresistible beauty. The gods all bestow gifts upon her. Aphrodite gives her grace, Hermes gives her a cunning and deceitful heart, and Hera gives her a consuming curiosity. Her name is Pandora, the all-gifted. Zeus presents her, along with a sealed jar, to Epimetheus, who, despite his brother's warnings never to accept a gift from Zeus, is immediately smitten and marries her. Pandora, unable to resist her God-given curiosity, eventually opens the jar. Out fly all the evils that will plague humanity forever: sickness, sorrow, old age, envy, and toil. She manages to slam the lid shut just in time to trap one last thing inside: hope. This is why, the story goes, even in the darkest of times, humanity always has hope. A rather thin silver lining, if you ask me. For Prometheus, the punishment is far more direct and brutal. Zeus has him chained to a rock in the Caucasus Mountains. Every day, a great eagle flies down and eats his liver. And every night, because he is an immortal titan, his liver grows back, ready for the next day's torment. It is an eternity of agony, a chilling warning to any who would dare defy the king of the gods. And so humanity, armed with fire but plagued by misery, begins its journey, forever caught between the divine and the bestial, their fate now inextricably linked to the whims, the tempers, and the epic, ongoing family drama of the gods on Mount Olympus. Now that you humans are on the scene, gifted with the stolen fire of civilization and simultaneously cursed with all the miseries from Pandora's little home decor disaster, the world becomes a much more interesting playground for the gods. They don't just sit on Olympus and observe. They meddle. They fall in love, they get angry, they hold grudges, and they very often come down to earth to interact with the mortals they find so fascinating and fragile. And from these interactions, a new kind of being is born, the demigod, the hero. These are the children of a god and a mortal, beings who walk with one foot in the human world and one in the divine, blessed with extraordinary abilities, but still burdened by mortal frailties, and most importantly, a mortal lifespan. One of the most famous of these heroes is Perseus. His story begins not with a heroic deed, but with a fearful king. King Acrisius of Argos receives a prophecy that he will be killed by his own grandson. Terrified, he does what any sensible, paranoid monarch would do. He locks his only daughter, Danae, in a bronze-lined chamber, open only to the sky, to ensure she never has a child. But you can't keep a god out with a locked door. Zeus, looking down from Olympus, sees the beautiful princess in her lonely prison and is, as usual, captivated. He transforms himself into a shower of golden light, or in some tellings, golden rain, and pours through the opening in the roof, filling the chamber and visiting Danae. From this rather glittery union, a son, Perseus, is born. When Acrisius discovers the baby, he's horrified. He doesn't dare kill the child outright for fear of angering the gods, so he opts for a more passive-aggressive approach. He puts Danae and the infant Perseus into a large wooden chest and casts it out to sea, leaving them to the mercy of the waves. But Poseidon, guided by Zeus's will, calms the waters, and the chest eventually washes ashore on the island of Seriphos. They are found by a kind fisherman named Dictys, who takes them in and raises Perseus as his own son. The king of this island, however, is Dictys' brother, Polydectes, a cruel and scheming man. As Perseus grows into a strong young man, Polydectes becomes infatuated with Danae and wants her for himself, but the protective Perseus is always in the way. Polydectes devises a wicked plan to get rid of him. He pretends he is going to marry a princess from another island and demands that all the noblemen of Seriphos bring him a horse as a wedding gift. This was a common and very real practice for gift-giving among the ancient Greek elite. Perseus, being a poor fisherman's boy, has no horse to give. In a moment of youthful pride and embarrassment, he boasts that he can bring the king any gift he desires, even the head of the Gorgon, Medusa. Polydectes seizes the opportunity. "Excellent," he says. "Bring me that, then." He knows it's a suicide mission. The Gorgons were 3 monstrous sisters with snakes for hair, and Medusa, the only mortal one, had a gaze so terrifying it turned any living creature that looked upon her to stone. Perseus is now trapped by his own boast, but he is a son of Zeus, and he does not go unaided. The gods on Olympus take notice. Athena, who has her own complicated history with Medusa, and Hermes, the helpful messenger, come to his aid. Hermes gives him a pair of winged sandals to fly him across the world, and an adamantine sword sharp enough to cut through the Gorgon's scaly neck. Athena gives him a highly polished bronze shield, instructing him to use it as a mirror to look at Medusa's reflection, thus avoiding her direct, petrifying gaze. They also tell him he needs 3 more items, held by the Stygian nymphs, but only their sisters, the Graeae, know their location. The Graeae are 3 ancient women who share a single eye and a single tooth between them. Perseus, using his divine cleverness, snatches the eye as they are passing it from one to another, and refuses to give it back until they tell him where to find the nymphs. Its divine guidance meets schoolyard bully tactics. Once he gets the location, the nymphs equip him with the final pieces of his heroic toolkit. The Cap of Darkness, which is the very same helmet of invisibility Hades was given by the Cyclopes, and a special bag, the Cabesus, to safely contain the severed head, whose stony gaze remains potent even in death. Fully equipped, he flies to the edge of the world, to the cave of the Gorgons. He finds them sleeping. Using the shield's reflection, he identifies Medusa among her immortal sisters. With one swift stroke of his sword, he decapitates her, From her neck, two beings spring forth, the children she had conceived with Poseidon, the winged horse, Pegasus, and the giant, Chrysaor. Without a moment to spare, Perseus shoves the head into his bag, puts on his invisibility cap, and flies away as the other two Gorgons awake and shriek in fury. On his journey home, flying over the coast of Ethiopia, he spots a young woman chained to a rock by the sea. This is the Princess Andromeda, offered as a sacrifice to Cetus, a sea monster sent by Poseidon to punish her mother for boasting she was more beautiful than the sea nymphs. Perseus, ever the hero, lands and makes a deal with her father, her hand in marriage if he can save her. When the monster emerges from the waves, Perseus pulls Medusa's head from the bag, and the great beast is instantly turned to stone. He frees Andromeda, and they are married, though he does have to turn her angry, jilted uncle to stone at the wedding reception. It's always something. Finally, he returns to Seriphos. He finds that Polydectes has been relentlessly pursuing his mother, who has taken refuge in a temple. Perseus marches into the king's court, where Polydectes and his followers mock him, refusing to believe he has succeeded. "I have the gift you requested," Perseus announces. He tells his friends to look away, reaches into his bag, and pulls out the head of Medusa. The king and his entire court are instantly turned to statues. Perseus makes the kind fisherman Dictys the new king and returns his magical items to the gods. And the prophecy? In a final, tragic twist of fate, Perseus later travels to a kingdom in Thessaly to compete in some funeral games. He throws a discus, but a stray wind or a divine whim sends it veering off course into the crowd, where it strikes and kills an old man. That old man, visiting from Argos, is none other than his grandfather, King Acrisius, who had fled his own kingdom precisely to avoid this fate. You just can't escape a prophecy. And then there is Heracles, or Hercules as the Romans called him. The son of Zeus and a mortal woman named Alcmene, he is the ultimate hero, a figure of superhuman strength and immense appetites. His story is one of greatness defined by suffering. Hera, Zeus's ever-jealous wife, despises Heracles from the moment of his birth. She sends two serpents to his crib to kill him, but the infant hero simply strangles them, one in each hand, gurgling happily. His entire life is a series of trials, many engineered by Hera's hatred. The most famous of these are the 12 labors. After Hera drives him into a fit of madness in which he kills his own wife and children, a grief-stricken Heracles goes to the oracle at Delphi. To atone for his terrible deed, he is told he must serve his cousin, King Eurystheus, for 12 years and perform any 10 tasks he demands. The cowardly king, also prompted by Hera, devises a series of seemingly impossible labors. He must kill the Nemean lion, a beast whose hide is impervious to weapons. Heracles strangles it. He must slay the Lernaean Hydra, a multi-headed serpent that grows 2 new heads for every one that is cut off. He succeeds with the help of his nephew Iolaus, who cauterizes the neck stumps with a torch. He must capture the golden hind of Artemis and the Erymanthian boar. He has to clean the Augean stables, home to thousands of cattle, in a single day. He cleverly diverts 2 rivers to flush them out. He battles the Stymphalian birds, captures the Cretan bull, and steals the mares of Diomedes, which eat human flesh. He must retrieve the girdle of Hippolyta, queen of the Amazons. He has to steal the cattle of the 3-bodied giant Geryon, who lives at the western edge of the world. For his 11th labor, he must fetch the golden apples of the Hesperides, which are guarded by a dragon and belong to Hera. He accomplishes this by tricking the Titan Atlas into getting them for him. And for his final, most terrifying labor, he must descend into the underworld itself and bring back its guard dog, the 3-headed Cerberus, a task he completes with Hades' reluctant permission. These epic tales of Perseus and Heracles are just 2 among many. They show a world where the line between God and mortal is thin, where courage and divine favor can elevate a human to legendary status, but where even the greatest heroes are still puppets of fate, their lives shaped by the whims and passions of the dysfunctional divine family on Olympus. The age of individual heroes, of lone demigods battling monsters in the wilderness, eventually gives way to an age of armies and nations, where the quarrels of the gods ignite conflicts that consume entire civilizations. The grand, tragic centerpiece of this era is the Trojan War, a conflict so immense and so devastating that its echoes will shape the Greek world for centuries. And like so many great tragedies, it all starts at a party with a single, uninvited guest. The setting is the wedding of the sea nymph Thetis and a mortal king named Peleus. This is the very same couple who will become the parents of Achilles. All the gods and goddesses are invited to the celebration on Mount Olympus. All, that is, except for one, Eris, the goddess of discord. Understandably, you don't typically invite discord to a wedding. But Eris is not one to be slighted. She decides to give them a wedding gift anyway. She procures a golden apple, and upon it, she inscribes a single phrase, Callisti, for the fairest. She then rolls the apple into the middle of the banquet hall. Immediately, chaos erupts. 3 of the most powerful goddesses each claim the apple is meant for them. Hera, the queen of the gods, Athena, the goddess of wisdom, and Aphrodite, the goddess of love. The argument becomes so heated that it threatens to tear the divine family apart. Zeus, in a masterful display of avoiding responsibility, refuses to be the judge. He knows that no matter who he chooses, the other 2 will make his life miserable. Instead, he declares that the matter must be decided by the most handsome mortal man in the world. That man is a young prince named Paris, who is living as a shepherd on the slopes of Mount Ida, near the city of Troy. He was sent away as an infant because of a prophecy that he would be the downfall of his great city. Hermes escorts the 3 goddesses down to the unsuspecting shepherd and presents him with the golden apple and his impossible task. This isn't a simple beauty contest. Each goddess offers him a bribe. Hera offers him power. She will make him the king of all Europe and Asia. Athena offers him wisdom and victory in battle. She will make him the most renowned warrior who ever lived. But Aphrodite, with a knowing smile, offers him the one thing a young man's heart desires most. She promises him the love of the most beautiful mortal woman in the world. Paris, guided more by his heart than his head, gives the golden apple to Aphrodite. Hera and Athena are, to put it mildly, furious. They depart, vowing eternal enmity against Paris and his entire city of Troy. Aphrodite, delighted, prepares to make good on her promise. The most beautiful mortal woman in the world is Helen, a daughter of Zeus, who is, unfortunately, already married to Menelaus, the king of Sparta. But a promise is a promise. Paris travels to Sparta, where he is welcomed as a guest in Menelaus's court. Hospitality, or xenia, was a sacred obligation in the ancient world, protected by Zeus himself. To harm a guest or betray a host was a profound sin. While Menelaus is away, Aphrodite works her magic. Helen falls deeply in love with Paris, and together, they flee back to Troy, taking with them a significant portion of the Spartan treasury. When Menelaus returns, he is enraged. This is not just a personal betrayal. It is a grave insult to his honor and a violation of the sacred laws of hospitality. He goes to his brother, Agamemnon, the powerful king of Mycenae and the high king of all the Achaean Greeks. Agamemnon agrees to help, seeing this as a perfect opportunity to unite the Greek kingdoms and conquer the wealthy, strategic city of Troy. Before she had married Menelaus, Helen had been so beautiful that every king and prince in Greece had wanted to marry her. Her clever stepfather, Tyndareus, had made them all swear a sacred oath that no matter who was chosen as her husband, they would all defend her marriage against anyone who tried to disrupt it. Agamemnon now calls upon that oath. He summons the heroes you have come to know, the clever Odysseus from Ithaca, the wise old Nestor, the mighty Ajax, and the greatest warrior of them all, Achilles, who joins the fight knowing that a prophecy has foretold he will either live a long, boring life at home or die a young, glorious death at Troy. And so 1,000 ships are launched. The Achaean army sails across the Aegean and lays siege to the mighty, impenetrable walls of Troy. For 10 long years, the war rages. It is a brutal, grinding conflict, a stalemate much like the Titanomachy before it. The Trojans, led by their noble prince Hector, brother of Paris, are valiant defenders. The Greeks are relentless attackers. The gods, meanwhile, are not content to watch from the sidelines. They take sides, their old grudges playing out on the battlefield. Hera and Athena, still furious about the golden apple, actively aid the Greeks, deflecting Trojan spears and inspiring Greek warriors. Aphrodite, of course, protects Paris, at one point whisking him away from a duel with Menelaus in a cloud of mist. Apollo favors the Trojans, sending a plague through the Greek camp. Ares, loving the carnage, fights for Troy until he is wounded by the Greek hero Diomedes, who is being guided by Athena. The war on earth becomes a mirror of the squabbles in heaven. The turning point of the war comes from a quarrel between mortals. Agamemnon, in his arrogance, insults Achilles by taking a captured Trojan woman from him. The proud Achilles, his honor wounded, withdraws from the battle, taking his elite soldiers, the Myrmidons, with him. Without their greatest warrior, the Greeks begin to lose badly. The Trojans, led by Hector, drive them back to their ships. Finally, Achilles' closest friend, Patroclus, persuades Achilles to let him wear his famous armor and lead the Myrmidons back into battle to rally the troops. Patroclus fights bravely but is ultimately slain by Hector, who strips him of Achilles' armor. The death of Patroclus shatters Achilles. Filled with a grief that eclipses even his wounded pride, he vows revenge. His mother, Thetis, has Hephaestus forge him a new suit of divine armor. He returns to the battlefield, a terrifying force of pure rage. He cuts through the Trojan ranks, seeking only Hector. They finally meet in a climactic duel outside the city walls. Achilles, empowered by his grief and divine aid, kills Hector. In a final brutal act of desecration, he ties Hector's body to the back of his chariot and drags it around the city walls for days. This act horrifies both mortals and gods, a violation of all respect for the dead. Even Achilles, however, eventually fulfills the prophecy and is killed, struck by an arrow in his only vulnerable spot, his heel. An arrow fired by Paris but guided by the hand of Apollo. Even with Hector and Achilles gone, the city's walls still stand. The war can only be won by a trick. It is the cunning Odysseus who devises the final, ingenious plan, the Trojan horse. The Greeks build a colossal wooden horse and leave it on the beach, pretending to sail away in defeat. The Trojans, despite the frantic warnings of the priest Laocoon and the prophetess Cassandra, who is cursed to never be believed, see the horse as a victory trophy, an offering to Athena. They drag the massive statue into their city and celebrate their long-awaited victory. But hidden inside the hollow belly of the horse are Odysseus and a handful of the best Greek soldiers. That night, after the Trojans have fallen into a drunken, exhausted sleep, the Greeks creep out, open the city gates for their returning army, and the sack of Troy begins. The city is destroyed in a night of fire and slaughter. The men are killed, the treasures are looted, and the women are taken as slaves. The war is over, but for the Greek heroes, the journey is not. Their voyages home are long and fraught with peril, a final chapter of suffering known as the Nostoi, or the returns. Many are shipwrecked, killed, or wander for years, punished by the gods for their hubris and the atrocities committed during the sack. The most famous of these journeys is that of Odysseus, who will spend another 10 years battling monsters, resisting sorceresses and angering gods, especially Poseidon, before he finally makes it back to his home in Ithaca. And so, you are left at the end of this grand, sweeping story, from the silent, formless void of chaos to the birth of the cosmos, from the brutal reign of the Titans to the rise of the quarrelsome Olympians, from the first shivering humans to the mighty, tragic heroes who fought and died under the gaze of their divine parents. You have seen a universe born from family drama, a world shaped by love, jealousy, and revenge on a cosmic scale. The great myths fall silent, their lessons absorbed into the soil of a world now forever changed. And as the last of the heroes finally finds his way home, a new kind of quiet settles over the land, the quiet of an age that has passed, leaving behind only stories whispered on the night wind. How coffeehouse culture began in the Ottoman Empire. Breathe in and out. Let the noise of your world fade into a gentle hum. Let your thoughts soften at the edges like old paper. We are going on a journey, not across continents of land and sea, but through the quiet corridors of time. And our journey begins not with a bang, but with a beam. Before you are in the sprawling, magnificent heart of the Ottoman Empire, you are somewhere much quieter. You are in the highlands of Ethiopia, or perhaps the mountains of Yemen. The air is thin and cool, and the sun is a warm blanket on your shoulders. The only sounds are the gentle bleating of goats and the whisper of wind through scrubby trees. You are a goatherd, perhaps. A young man named Kaldi, according to a story that has been told and retold for centuries. Your days are long and wonderfully uneventful. You watch your flock, you chew on a blade of grass, you watch the clouds drift by. It is a simple life, a peaceful one. But one afternoon, you notice something odd. Your goats, usually so placid and content, are behaving strangely. They are leaping, dancing, and butting their heads together with an uncharacteristic energy. They are, for lack of a better term, absolutely full of beans. Following their trail, you find them munching on the bright red berries of a dark-leafed shrub you've never paid much mind to before. Curious, and perhaps a little bored, you decide to try one for yourself. The berry is bitter, the seed inside hard. You chew, you swallow, and you wait. And then you feel it. A warmth spreads through your limbs. The afternoon haze in your mind clears, replaced by a sharp, crystalline focus. The world seems brighter, the birdsong clearer. You feel awake, truly awake. You might even do a little dance yourself, a quiet, joyful jig, right there alongside your giddy goats. It's a lovely legend, isn't it? Proving that even in antiquity, the discovery of a new stimulant usually involved some questionable foraging and a herd of confused but very happy animals. This story, of course, is likely just that, a story, a fable to explain a miracle. But the truth it points to is real. Here, in these remote highlands, a plant with a mysterious power was growing, waiting to be discovered. Now let the image of the dancing goats fade. Let's drift forward a little, to the 15th century, to a Sufi monastery nestled in the hills of Yemen. The air here is thick with the scent of incense and old books. The sun streams through carved wooden screens, painting intricate patterns of light on the worn carpets. Your life here is one of devotion, of contemplation. Your goal is to feel a closer connection to the divine, through prayer, through study, and through the long, nocturnal ceremonies of Dhikr, the remembrance of God. These nights are long. The chants go on for hours, a rhythmic, hypnotic recitation that can lull even the most devoted mind towards sleep. But you and your brothers have a secret, a way to keep the body alert while the spirit soars. In a quiet corner of the monastery, a fire glows. Over it rests a small, long-handled pot. One of your brothers is carefully tending to a handful of dark, roasted beans. He grinds them into a fine powder with a mortar and pestle, the rhythmic thump-thump-thump a familiar and comforting sound. He spoons the dark powder into the pot with water and places it directly on the hot embers. Soon a rich, earthy aroma begins to fill the small room. It's a smell that speaks of the earth, of fire, of something ancient and powerful. He watches the pot intently. As the liquid heats, a dark foam rises to the surface. Just before it boils over, he lifts it from the heat, lets it settle, and then places it back. He does this 2, maybe 3 times. A simple ritual, a practiced art. This is the preparation of kawa. The finished brew is poured into small, handleless clay cups. It is black as night, thick and unfiltered. A fine sediment, a dark mud, settles at the bottom of your cup. There is no sugar, no milk. This is not a beverage of comfort. It is a tool. You take a sip. The taste is intensely bitter, almost medicinal. It's less double-shot vanilla latte and more boiled soil with a hint of spiritual awakening. But as the potent liquid warms you from the inside, you feel its intended effect. The fog of weariness lifts. Your mind becomes a still, clear pool. You are ready for the long night ahead. Your focus is sharpened, your devotion unwavering. For a time, this is where the story of coffee remains. It is a monastic secret, a mystic's aid. It is the wine of Islam, as some call it, a permissible intoxicant that doesn't cloud the mind but clarifies it. It is sipped in quiet cloisters and in the private studies of a few worldly scholars who have heard whispers of its power from their Sufi friends. It was the original secret menu item, long before your local barista learned to make something called a polka dot peppermint mocha. But secrets this could rarely stay secret for long. Yemen is a nexus of trade. Pilgrims on their way to Mecca pass through its ports. Merchants carrying spices from the east and textiles from the west cross its paths. And slowly, carefully, the beans begin to travel. They are tucked into saddlebags, stored in the holds of ships sailing the Red Sea. The knowledge of how to roast them, how to grind them, how to brew them, travels with them. Now, you find yourself in Cairo. The year is around 1510. Cairo is a sprawling, chaotic, magnificent city. A true metropolis, humming with the energy of 1,000 different trades. Here, in the area surrounding the great Al-Azhar University, students and scholars from across the Muslim world gather. And here, too, the Yemeni students have brought their secret brew. In the quiet courtyards and private residences, small groups gather to drink kawa, to study late into the night, to debate points of theology and law with a new, caffeine-fueled intensity. The drink is still a private affair, a luxury, a curiosity, but its reputation is growing. Merchants hear of it. Bureaucrats, working long hours in the service of the Mamluk Sultan, hear of it. They hear of a drink that can banish fatigue and sharpen the wits. And they want in. The journey continues. The Ottoman Sultan, Selim I, conquers Egypt in 1517. The vast wealth, the culture, the scholars, and the trade routes of Cairo are now all part of the mighty Ottoman Empire. And along with the taxes, the treasures, and the titles, something else makes its way north, up to the imperial capital, a sack of roasted aromatic beans. Now at last you are in Constantinople, or, as it is increasingly known, Istanbul. The city is the center of the world, or at least it feels that way. The Golden Horn glitters under the sun, packed with ships from every known port. The domes and minarets of 1,000 mosques pierce the sky. The air is a symphony of sounds and smells. The call to prayer, the clang of a blacksmith's hammer, the chatter of a dozen languages in the bazaar, the scent of roasting chestnuts, and the salty tang of the Bosphorus. You are a wealthy merchant, or perhaps a high-ranking cleric in the court of Suleiman the Magnificent. Your home is a grand house with a peaceful, walled garden, a refuge from the city's delightful chaos. A friend, a scholar who has just returned from Cairo, has brought you a gift. He presents it with a knowing smile. A small bag of dark, almost black beans. He calls them the beans of Yemen. He tells you of their properties, of the way they can sweep the cobwebs from the mind. Your servants, under his careful instruction, prepare the drink. They are clumsy at first, and used to the ritual. The grinding is uneven, the water perhaps a little too hot. But soon, that same rich, earthy aroma that once filled the monasteries of Yemen now fills your refined, tile-adorned study. You are handed a small, exquisite porcelain cup, a recent import from China. You eye the dark, murky liquid with suspicion. It looks potent. You take a tentative sip. The bitterness hits your tongue, a shock to a palate accustomed to sweet sherbets and delicate teas. But you take another, and then you feel it, a gentle wave of alertness, a sharpening of your senses. The intricate patterns on the Iznik tiles on your wall seem to vibrate with new clarity. The words in the manuscript on your desk seem to stand out, ready to be understood, to be mastered. For now, this is your private pleasure, a secret shared among the elite. You drink it in your mansion, in the palace, in the secluded halls of a madrasa. Historians still argue whether the first beans arrived in Constantinople with traders from Damascus or directly from Cairo. But it doesn't really matter how they got here. They are here. The secret is out of the monastery and is now whispering its way through the highest echelons of the world's most powerful empire. The stage is set. The actors, the mystics, the scholars, the merchants have all played their part. The drink is here, but its culture is not. It is still a private vice, a personal tool. But someone somewhere in this bustling city is about to have an idea that will take this bitter, black brew out of the private study and put it onto the public stage, changing the way people talk, think, and live forever. The secret of your private pleasure, this dark and potent brew, cannot be contained by the high walls of your garden. The aroma itself seems to have ideas of its own, escaping over the walls and mingling with the scents of the city. For a few years, Kawa remains the domain of the wealthy, the pious, and the scholarly. It is a quiet luxury, a personal ritual. But Istanbul is a city of commerce, a place where every cent is a potential sale, every need a potential business. And the need for wakefulness, for clarity, for a place to simply be, is as old as the city itself. Now, let us leave your comfortable study. You are standing in the churn of the city, near the docks. The year is 1554. The air is thick with the smell of sea salt, tar, and 100 different spices being unloaded from galleys. Here, two men arrive, strangers to this great capital, but not to the ways of trade. One is named Hakam, from the great trading city of Aleppo. The other is Shams, from ancient Damascus. They are savvy businessmen, their eyes always scanning for an opportunity. And they have noticed something. They have seen how the elites of their own cities, and now here in the capital, cherish this new drink from Yemen. They see the wealthy paying handsomely for the beans, for servants skilled in the brewing. And they have a thought, so simple it's revolutionary. Why should this pleasure be confined to private homes? Why not offer it to everyone? Or at least, everyone with a few aki to spare. It's a business plan born of pure observation. They aren't trying to change the world. They're just trying to sell a cup of coffee. You watch them as they search for the perfect location. They need somewhere with constant foot traffic, somewhere central, somewhere people with a little leisure time might congregate. They find it in the district of Tatakali. It's a dizzying, chaotic labyrinth of commerce, nestled in the shadow of the Grand Bazaar. Here, the air hums with the frantic energy of 1,000 transactions. Money changers clink coins, scribes scratch out contracts for illiterate merchants, and artisans hawk their wares from cramped stalls. It is loud, it is crowded, and it is perfect. They rent a building. It isn't much. A simple, 2-story wooden structure, perhaps a former workshop or a small warehouse. They set about transforming it. There are no interior designers, no branding consultants. Their guide is simple, practical hospitality. The ground floor is cleared out. The rough wooden floors are swept clean and covered with woven kilims and thicker carpets. Along the walls, they build long, low benches, wide enough for a man to sit comfortably cross-legged. There are no tables, no chairs. This is not a place for a formal meal. It is a place for lingering. In the most prominent corner, they build a raised platform, tiled and decorated. This is the stage, the heart of the entire operation. This is the okak, the hearth, where the coffee will be made. Here, the Kavasi USTA, the coffee master, will preside. He is more than a cook. He is a craftsman, a showman, the keeper of the flame. He is the original celebrity barista, though his only latte art is a perfect layer of foam on a tiny cup of black liquid. They call their establishment Kivahan. And then, with little fanfare, they open the doors. Step inside with them. Let your eyes adjust to the dim light. The bright chaos of the street is replaced by a calmer, more focused atmosphere. The first thing you notice is the smell. That rich, intoxicating aroma of roasting beans, deeper and more pervasive than it ever was in your private study, now hangs permanently in the air. The second thing you notice is the sound. The low murmur of conversation, the gentle clinking of porcelain cups, and the rhythmic thump-thump-thump of the great mortar and pestle as a young apprentice grinds a fresh batch of beans. Who are the first customers? Not the Grand Vizier or the Sultan's advisors. They still prefer their private service. The first to brave this new establishment are the people of the district. A government clerk, his fingers stained with ink, stopping by after a long day of copying edicts. A pair of merchants, their deal at the bazaar concluded, looking for a place to sit and gossip. An aspiring poet, hoping the famous brew might ignite a spark of inspiration. A retired soldier, with time on his hands and stories to tell. You find a space on one of the low wooden benches, pulling your legs up to sit comfortably. The wood is worn but smooth. A servant approaches, bows slightly, and takes your order. There is no menu. There are no choices. No skim milk, no sugar-free vanilla syrup, no extra hot, half-calf, triple-shot complications. There is only coffee. You can have it sweetened, or you can have it unsweetened. That's it. You ask for yours a little sweet. You watch the Kavasi at work on his raised platform. He is a picture of concentration. With a small shovel, he scoops glowing embers from the main fire into a bed of sand. This sand bed provides a gentle, even heat. He measures the fine, flour-like coffee grounds and sugar into a sezv, a small, long-handled copper pot. He adds water, stirs it once, and then nests the pot in the hot sand. He watches it like a hawk. You see the dark liquid begin to swell, a fine crema rising to the top. Just as it threatens to boil over, he plucks it from the sand. He lets it settle, then returns it to the heat. He might repeat this 2 or 3 times, a small, mesmerizing dance of heat and patience. Finally, it is ready. He pours the coffee not from a great height, but carefully, into a small porcelain cup no bigger than an egg. The thick, dark liquid fills the cup, the rich foam, or kaimak, settled perfectly on top. The servant brings it to you on a small metal tray. You take a sip. It is strong, it is hot, and it is fundamentally social. The bitterness is still there, but it's balanced by the sugar, and the taste is rich and complex. At the bottom of the cup, a thick layer of sludge is forming, the mud, that is an inseparable part of the experience. Drinking the grounds was, and remains, a rookie mistake. You look around. Men are talking in low voices. 2 old men in the corner are deeply engrossed in a game of chess, the board balanced on a low stool between them. Another group is playing backgammon, the clatter of the dice a sharp counterpoint to the general hum. Some men sit alone, simply watching the room, their minds clearly at work. It's a new kind of space. It's not a tavern. There's no boisterous drunkenness, no slurring or singing. The alertness from the coffee keeps the mood sharp, the conversation lucid. It's not a mosque. It is for worldly chatter, not divine worship. It's not a home or a workshop. It is a public space where you can be both anonymous and part of a community. It is, for a few small coins, a place to belong. Historians still argue whether these early coffee houses were intended as purely commercial ventures, or if they had a more deliberate social or political dimension from the start. But looking around Kivahan, it seems the social dimension was simply inevitable. Put people together in a comfortable space, remove the dulling effects of alcohol, and sharpen their minds with a new and exciting chemical, and they will do what people do best: talk. They talk about business, about politics, about poetry, about philosophy, about the latest gossip from the palace. The idea, this brilliant, simple idea from two Syrian merchants, catches on like fire in a dry field. Within a decade, another coffee house opens, and then another, and another. Soon, there are dozens, then hundreds of them scattered across the city, each with its own character, its own clientele. There are coffee houses for the janissaries, for the civil servants, for the merchants, for the artists. This isn't just a new business. It's a new organ in the body of the city, a place where the lifeblood of information and conversation can be circulated and filtered. You have witnessed the birth of the world's first third place, a neutral ground between home and work, and it all started here, with a simple cup of bitter black coffee, served on a low bench in Tatakali. The novelty of Kivahan and its many children does not wear off. Instead, it deepens, weaving itself into the very fabric of daily life in Istanbul. You find yourself drawn back, again and again, not just for the coffee itself, but for the atmosphere it creates. The initial curiosity of the first-time visitor has matured into the comfortable habit of a regular. You have your preferred spot, your preferred level of sweetness, and you are starting to recognize the faces around you. The coffee house is no longer just a place. It has become a rhythm. In the morning, it is quieter. This is when the merchants come, fresh from the dawn prayer, to finalize deals and discuss the day's shipments. They speak in hushed, serious tones, their coffee cups resting beside inkwells and ledgers. The air is thick with the smell of fresh coffee and ambition. By midday, the crowd changes. Clerks and government officials, escaping the stifling confines of their offices, file in for a break. They complain about their superiors, trade rumors about promotions and demotions, and critique the latest imperial edict. Here, in the relative anonymity of the coffee house, a minor bureaucrat can speak with a frankness he would never dare use in the halls of the Topkapi Palace. It's a bit like a modern office water cooler, but with more luxurious carpets and a significantly higher chance of hearing a genuinely good poem. It is in the afternoon, however, that the coffee house truly comes alive. As the workday winds down, the room fills with a more eclectic and energetic crowd. The air grows thick with chatter and the smoke from long-stemmed clay pipes as tobacco, another New World import, finds a natural home alongside coffee. You settle into your corner as the performance begins. These establishments quickly earned a nickname, Mekteb-i Irfan, or School of the Cultured. And it is a fitting name. They are centers of informal education, of news, and of entertainment. In one corner, a professional storyteller, a meta, has captivated a small crowd. He stands on a low stool, using only a staff and a handkerchief as props, yet he populates the room with a world of characters. With a shift in his voice, he is a cunning vizier. With a flick of his handkerchief, he is a shy maiden. He tells tales of epic heroes, of tricksters, of star-crossed lovers. The crowd hangs on his every word, sipping their coffee, their minds transported. On another day, the entertainment might be a shadow puppet play, a Karagaz performance. A white screen is stretched across a frame, lit from behind. The puppeteer manipulates flat, articulated figures made of painted camel hide, their shadows dancing on the screen. The plays are bawdy, satirical, and hilarious. The main characters, the clever and unscrupulous Karagaz and the educated, pompous Hasavat, trade insults, get into ridiculous scrapes, and offer a running commentary on the follies of society. It is through these shadow puppets that the common man can laugh at the powerful, a safe and cathartic form of social critique. But the most important activity, the one that defines the coffee house, is conversation. This is the true school. You listen to a group of young poets passionately debating the merits of a particular rhyme scheme. They recite their own verses, seeking praise and criticism from their peers. A new style of poetry, a new way of seeing the world, might be born in this room, over cups of muddy coffee. Elsewhere, a group of grizzled janissaries, off-duty and relaxed, refight old battles, their voices low but intense as they trace lines of attack on the carpet with their fingers. and everywhere there is news. The coffee house is the city's living newspaper. Before the printing press became widespread in the Ottoman world, information moved orally. A merchant just arrived from Venice brings news of the latest tensions with the Habsburgs. A pilgrim on his way back from Mecca shares stories from the holy cities. A palace servant, sworn to secrecy, lets slip a juicy piece of gossip about a minor prince's scandalous behavior. Information, rumor, and outright fabrication all mingle in the air, to be sorted through, debated, and passed on. A mainstream historical fact from this era is that literacy rates, while growing, were still relatively low. The coffee house became the great equalizer, a place where the illiterate could become as well-informed as the literate, simply by listening. You learn to read the room. You learn who the important figures are, not by their clothes, for many dress simply, but by the way others fall silent when they speak. You learn who the resident wit is, the man with a clever joke for every occasion. You learn who the blowhard is, the one whose stories grow taller with each telling. It is a complex social ecosystem, a university of the streets. One of the most peculiar and endearing features of this culture is the coffee house intellectual. This isn't a formally trained scholar from a madrasa, but a man who has made the coffee house his entire world. He spends all day, every day, in his favorite establishment. He has no official job, seemingly no source of income, yet he is always there. He survives on the charity of the coffee house owner and its patrons. In exchange for free coffee and the occasional bowl of soup, he offers his intellect. He is a walking encyclopedia of city gossip, a master chess player, an insightful literary critic, and a political commentator of astonishing confidence. He is essentially the 16th century version of a guy who spends all day posting on internet forums. Patrons seek him out for his opinions, to settle a bet, or just to hear him hold forth on the topic of the day. The physical space of the coffee house also evolves. The owners, competing for customers, begin to invest in aesthetics. The carpets become more plush, the cushions more comfortable. The walls are adorned with intricate tile work and elegant calligraphy, usually verses of poetry praising coffee. The coffee cup is the sun in the hand of the beautiful, one might read. Another. Coffee is the common man's gold, and like gold, it brings to every man the feeling of luxury and nobility. Fountains are sometimes built in the center of the room, their gentle burbling providing a soothing soundtrack to the conversation. In the summer, the coffee house might spill out into a shaded garden, where patrons can sip their brew under the shade of a plane tree. The coffee itself remains simple. Sod plain, or to Securely medium sweet, or Securely sweet. The focus is not on variety, but on the quality of the ritual. The perfect grind, the perfect foam, the perfect temperature. Drinking coffee becomes an art form for the consumer as well as the producer. You learn to sip it slowly, to make the small cup last. The conversation is the main course. The coffee is the catalyst that allows it to be savored. As you sit back, taking in the scene, the storyteller's drama, the poet's arguments, the merchant's whispers, the backgammon player's curses, you realize you are witnessing something profound. A new kind of public man is being forged here. A man who is defined not just by his family, his faith, or his trade, but by his opinions, his wit, his knowledge of the world. The coffee house is a gymnasium for the mind, a theater for the soul, a network for the ambitious. It is a place where a community of strangers can be built, one cup at a time. The simple act of selling a bitter drink has accidentally created a space that would challenge the old order and shape the intellectual life of the empire for centuries to come. The low, comfortable murmur of the coffee house, the gentle clink of porcelain, the rhythm of conversation, it all feels so permanent, so natural. But this new culture, which you've watched blossom in the heart of Istanbul, is not without its enemies. This school of the cultured is, to some, a den of vice. This living newspaper is, to others, a source of dangerous sedition. As you settle into your usual spot, you begin to feel a new tension in the air, a subtle shift in the mood. The conversations, once so open, are now sometimes conducted in whispers. Glances are cast toward the door more frequently. The first rumblings of discontent come from the religious authorities. A group of stern, conservative clerics begin to preach against kawa. They raise theological objections. Is this being an intoxicant? The Quran forbids intoxicants. While coffee doesn't befuddle the mind like wine, it certainly alters one's state. Its effects, the alertness, the energy, are they not an unnatural stimulation, a deviation from the state God intended for man? They argue that anything roasted to the point of being charred, like a coffee bean, is technically charcoal, and consuming charcoal is forbidden. It's a bit of a theological stretch, of course, like arguing that toast is a sin. But when you are determined to forbid something, you can always find a reason. The imams complain from their pulpits that men are spending their afternoons in the coffee house instead of attending prayers at the mosque. They see the crowds gathered around the storyteller and lament that the tales of tricksters and lovers are replacing the study of the holy texts. They see these places as distractions from a pious life, breeding grounds for idleness and frivolity. You hear these arguments discussed and dissected within the coffee house itself. The patrons naturally have a different view. They argue that coffee is a gift from God, a tool that aids in late-night prayer and study. They point out that coffee houses are far more civilized than the taverns, which operate in the shadows. Here, men's minds are sharpened, not dulled. The debate rages, not just in the mosques and coffee houses, but in the highest legal circles of the empire. This opposition comes to a head under the reign of Sultan Murad IV in the 17th century. Murad IV is a formidable, iron-fisted ruler, determined to restore order and discipline to an empire he sees as having grown soft and decadent. And he develops a particular hatred for the coffee house. His reasoning is not primarily religious, it is political. Murad recognizes something that the patrons themselves perhaps only dimly perceive. These are uncontrolled spaces. In the palace, in the mosque, in the barracks, speech is regulated. Hierarchies are clear. But in the coffee house, a janissary can sit next to a scribe, a merchant next to a poet. Ideas and information flow freely, unmediated by official channels. And what starts as idle gossip can quickly curdle into political discontent. Men complain about taxes. They criticize a vizier's policies. They question the outcome of a recent military campaign. For a ruler like Murad, who once famously executed a man for rowing a boat too close to the palace walls, this free-for-all of public opinion is intolerable. He declares that coffee houses are nests of sedition. He decrees a complete ban, not just on the houses, but on the consumption of coffee itself. The punishment for being caught drinking coffee, or even in a coffee house, is severe. For a first offense, a sound flogging. For a second, the punishment is death. Suddenly, the city's hundreds of coffee houses are shuttered. The sounds of conversation and the smell of roasting beans are extinguished. You see patrols of janissaries roaming the streets at night, their mission to enforce the Sultan's draconian law. The story goes that Murad IV himself would prowl the streets of Istanbul in disguise, a common soldier or a simple traveler, trying to catch his subjects in the act. He would enter a closed shop, ask for coffee, and if the unfortunate owner obliged, the Sultan would reveal himself and the executioner would be summoned. It was a terrifying time. Your favorite social pastime has become a capital crime. But the desire for coffee and for the community it fostered is not so easily stamped out. The culture simply goes underground. People begin brewing coffee in secret, in the back rooms of their homes and shops. The trade in beans becomes a black market affair, with smugglers risking their lives to bring sacks of Yemeni charcoal into the city. A quirky historical tidbit from this period is the invention of the mobile coffee vendor. Enterprising men would carry the entire coffee-making apparatus in a large container on their backs, with hot coals and a brazier suspended below. They would move through the city's back alleys, selling illicit cups to those desperate for their fix, ready to pack up and flee at the first sign of a patrol. It was the world's first and most dangerous food truck. This prohibition, like many others throughout history, proves impossible to enforce. The demand is too great, the habit too deeply ingrained. After Murad IV's death, the ban is quietly lifted. The coffee houses reopen, and the city breathes a collective sigh of relief. The patrons flood back in, the storytellers retell their tales, and the backgammon dice start clattering once more. The attempt to suppress the coffee house had failed. In fact, it had probably made it even more popular. Over the next centuries, coffee's position in Ottoman society would continue to fluctuate. Some sultans tolerated it, others taxed it heavily, and a few tried to ban it again. The religious debates never entirely went away. But coffee had won. It had become an inseparable part of the culture, a daily ritual for millions, from the Sultan in his palace to the boatman on the Bosphorus. Now, as you sit in your familiar spot, the room buzzing with a renewed, almost defiant energy, you reflect on the journey you have witnessed. From a dancing goat in Ethiopia to a Sufi's secret in Yemen. From a private luxury in the mansions of Istanbul to the world's first public coffee house in a crowded market district. You've seen it become a school, a theater, a newspaper, and a social network. You've watched it survive the condemnation of clerics and the wrath of a sultan. The coffeehouse culture that began here would eventually spread to Europe. In the 17th century, a Turkish or Armenian visitor would open the first coffeehouse in Venice, then in Paris, then in London. These European coffeehouses, directly inspired by the Ottoman model, would become the centers of the Enlightenment, the penny universities, where thinkers like Voltaire and Rousseau would debate the ideas that would shape the modern world. But here, in Istanbul, is where it all began. You take the last sip from your small cup, leaving the thick, dark sludge at the bottom. This mud is used for another beloved tradition, fortune-telling. You could turn the cup over, let the grounds create a pattern, and have a wise old woman read your future in the coffee stains. But you don't need to. You have already seen the future. You have seen how a simple bean, brewed with care and shared in public, can create a space for thought, for community, for argument, and for art. You have watched the birth of a culture that would not only energize an empire, but wake up the entire world. And as the afternoon light softens and the call to evening prayer echoes across the rooftops, you feel a deep sense of peace. The story is not over, but this chapter is complete. And it all started with a simple, bitter brew. How Haudenosaunee women governed their communities. Let the world you know begin to dissolve. Release the tension in your shoulders, the thoughts that crowd your mind. We're going to travel to a different time, a different way of being. Our journey takes us not across an ocean, but deep into the endless, ancient forests of what will one day be called the northeastern United States and southeastern Canada. Breathe in. The air is cool and clean, smelling of damp earth, of pine needles, and of the rich, slow decay of fallen leaves. The only sounds are the gentle whisper of wind through the high canopy of white pine and maple, the distant call of a crow, the soft rustle of your own moccasins on the forest floor. You have been walking for hours, gathering medicines or checking a trapline, and the light is beginning to fade, casting long, soft shadows that stretch like fingers across the path. You are not lost. You are never truly lost here. This forest is your home, your pantry, your sanctuary. You know the turn of every creek, the feel of moss on the north side of a beech tree, the scent that tells you a patch of wild ginger is near. But now it is time to return. As you emerge from the dense woods, you enter a vast clearing. Before you lies your village, a testament to human ingenuity and cooperation. It is surrounded by a formidable palisade, a double or even triple wall of sharpened logs, 20 feet high, a shield against the harshness of the world outside. Beyond the walls, you can see the great fields, sprawling acres that in the growing season are bursting with the life-giving trinity, corn, beans, and squash. But now, in the cool of the evening, the fields are fallow, resting under a thin blanket of mist. Your eyes, however, are drawn to the structures within the palisade. They are the heart of your world. The longhouses. They are magnificent, almost otherworldly buildings like great, overturned canoes resting on the earth. Some are over 100 feet long. A few are even larger, built of sturdy elm bark lashed over a frame of wooden poles. A gentle plume of smoke drifts from the smoke holes spaced evenly along the curved roof of each one, a sign of the warmth and life within. You pass through the gate in the palisade, and the sounds of the village envelop you. The happy shouts of children playing a game with a corn-husk doll, the rhythmic thump of a woman pounding corn into meal with a large wooden pestle, the low murmur of conversation. You walk towards the largest of the longhouses, the one that stands in the center of the village. This is your home. As you lift the heavy hide flap that covers the doorway, you step out of the twilight and into a different world. The inside of the longhouse is a long, wide corridor of warm, living space. The air is thick with the comforting smells of wood smoke, roasting meat, and savory stew. It's dim, lit only by the flickering glow of a series of fires that burn in hearths down the center of the earthen floor. The smoke drifts slowly upwards, finding its way out through the holes in the roof. Your eyes adjust, and you can see the shape of your world. On either side of the central corridor are raised platforms, partitioned into family compartments. Woven mats and soft furs cover the sleeping benches. Dried braids of corn, strings of squash, and bundles of herbs hang from the rafters alongside tools, weapons, and beautifully decorated clay pots. This entire building, this bustling, smoky living ark, is home to perhaps 60 people, a dozen families. And it is, in every sense of the word, your mother's house. This is the first and most fundamental truth of your existence. You are Haudenosaunee, the people of the Longhouse, and your society is matrilineal. Your identity, your name, your citizenship, and your place in the world are all passed down to you through your mother. You see her now by the central fire, stirring a large pot. She looks up and smiles, and you feel that profound sense of belonging. This space, this food, this fire, it is all part of her domain. This longhouse does not belong to your father. It does not belong to any man. It belongs to the women. Specifically, it belongs to the Owakaira, the maternal family line. This house was built for your grandmother, and it is now managed by her and her daughters. All the women who live here are related by blood. They are sisters, cousins, mothers, and aunts. Your father is here, of course. He is a respected and beloved member of your family unit. He lives with your mother in her compartment. He helps provide for you. He teaches you many things. But his roots are elsewhere. He belongs to a different longhouse on the other side of the village, his mother's longhouse. He is, in a way, a permanent and cherished guest here. When he married your mother, he moved into her home. It's a bit like the reverse of many old European customs, a system that effectively eliminates the entire concept of a mother-in-law problem, at least for the wife. At the head of this sprawling, multi-generational family is the clan mother. She is the senior woman of the longhouse, the matriarch. You see her now, sitting on her sleeping platform, her back straight, her hands busy mending a piece of clothing. She is not a queen who gives loud commands. Her power is quieter, more profound. She is the chief steward of the family's identity and its resources. She holds the family's hereditary names, settles disputes within the longhouse, and organizes the collective work of the women. Her wisdom is the anchor for everyone who lives under this roof. You belong to her clan. A mainstream historical fact of Haudenosaunee life is that society was organized into several clans, typically bear, wolf, turtle, snipe, deer, beaver, heron, and hawk, which cut across the different nations of the Confederacy. Your clan is your extended family, and you are a member of your mother's clan for life. This is not just a label, it's a fundamental part of your identity. You are forbidden from marrying someone from your own clan, no matter which nation they are from. This rule of exogamy cleverly weaves the nations together, ensuring that you have family and obligations in every village. Remembering who's in your clan is basically the most important social task you have, to avoid any deeply awkward romantic faux pas. Your father, being from a different clan, brings a different kind of connection to your life. But it is your maternal uncle, your mother's brother, who holds a special position. He is of your clan. He has a formal responsibility for your education and discipline, often more so than your father. Historians and anthropologists still argue whether the father's role was therefore emotionally distant, or simply structured differently, based more on affection than on clan duty. In your lived experience, your father is your warm companion, while your uncle is your mentor and guide in the ways of the clan. You find your compartment and put away your things. A quirky but telling detail of this life is that a man's most valuable personal possessions, his ceremonial regalia, his special tools, were often kept not in his wife's longhouse where he lived, but back in his mother's longhouse. That was his home base, the seat of his identity, the place where his clan treasures were stored. His presence in your longhouse is conditional on the strength of his marriage to your mother. Living in the longhouse is to live a life of radical collectivism. There is very little privacy. You share the fire, you share the food, you share the work, you share the stories. The compartments offer a sliver of personal space, but your life is fundamentally public, lived in the constant company of your extended family. It is a world built on balance and reciprocity. The men hunt, they trade, they go to war, they represent the longhouse in the world of men. The women own the house, they control the land, they raise the children, and they are the life-giving, life-sustaining core of the nation. As you sit by the fire, eating a bowl of stew your mother ladles for you, you look around at the faces in the flickering light. Your aunts, your cousins, your grandmother. You know who you are. You are a child of this longhouse, a member of this clan, a link in an unbroken chain stretching back through generations of women. You are home. And in this world, home is not just a place you live. It is the source of your power. The warmth of the longhouse fire seeps into your bones, a comforting anchor in the center of your world. As you grow, you begin to understand that the authority of the women in your longhouse, particularly your clan mother, extends far beyond its bark walls. It reaches into the very heart of how your people are governed. This is not a system of domestic convenience. It is a sophisticated political structure, and you are watching it operate from the inside out. Your days are filled with learning. You watch your mother, your aunts, and your grandmother. You learn how to distinguish between different types of clay for pottery, how to tan a deerskin until it is as soft as cloth, how to weave intricate patterns into baskets. But you are also learning something more subtle. You are learning how to listen. You are learning how to observe character. You are learning how to build consensus. One evening, the mood in the longhouse is different. It's quieter, more serious. The usual chatter and children's games have subsided. The clan mother has called a meeting. The women of your Owakaira, your maternal line, gather around the central fire. The issue is a grave one. The chief who represents your clan in the village and national councils has died. A great sadness hangs in the air, but it is coupled with a sense of profound responsibility. For it is the duty of the clan mother, in consultation with the other women of her clan, to choose his successor. The position of chief, or royaner, is a hereditary title. It belongs to your clan. The name of the chieftainship has been passed down for generations. But it is not passed from father to son. It is passed from the current chief to a new candidate chosen by the women who own that title. The men cannot choose their own leaders. They cannot inherit a title directly. They can only hold the position if it is granted to them by the women. You sit quietly on the edge of the circle, listening. Your clan mother, the matriarch, speaks first. Her voice is calm and measured. She speaks of the qualities needed in a leader. He must be patient, honest, and thick-skinned, able to withstand criticism without anger. He must be a man of peace, with no desire for personal wealth or glory. He must not have committed any serious crimes, and he absolutely cannot have shed blood in an act of rage or murder. He must be a good speaker, able to represent the clan's interests with clarity and wisdom. Essentially, the job description is for a saint who also happens to be good at public speaking, a tall order in any culture. Then the other women speak. Your mother, your aunts, your older cousins. They discuss the eligible men of the clan. The candidates could be a son, a brother, a cousin, or an uncle. They speak of one man's steady temperament, another's quick thinking. They bring up a third man's past selfishness, a small incident from years ago, but one that has not been forgotten. The women are the keepers of the community's memory, and they forget nothing. There is no rush to this decision. It may take days, even weeks, of discussion. They are choosing a voice for their people, a guardian of their future. They are not looking for the strongest warrior or the most ruthless negotiator. They are looking for a man with a good heart and a clear mind, a man who will listen to them. Finally, a consensus is reached. They have chosen a man, perhaps your maternal uncle, a man you know well. He is kind, a good hunter, and he speaks with a quiet authority. He is not a man who seeks power, which is precisely why he is a good candidate for it. The process is not over. The clan mother will now present her choice to the other women of your clan. If they all agree, she will then present the candidate to the men of the clan. They have a chance to voice their opinions, but they do not have the power of veto. This is not a democratic vote in the modern sense. It is a structured search for consensus, guided by female authority. Historians still argue whether the men's consultation was a genuine check on the women's power or more of a formality. But in practice, the women's choice was almost always respected. A wise clan mother would not choose a man her male kin universally opposed. Once the clan agrees, the candidate is presented to the other clans of your nation for their approval, following a specific ceremonial order. It is a system of checks and balances, ensuring that no one clan can impose its will on the others. Now, imagine the ceremony of installation. The entire village gathers. The chosen man is brought forward. He is given a new name, the hereditary name of the chief he is replacing. This is a profound moment. He is shedding his old identity and taking on the sacred responsibility of the title. The clan mother stands before him and delivers the charge. She reminds him of his duties. She tells him that he is now a servant of the people. His ears must be open to their needs, his mouth must speak the truth, and his heart must be filled with peace. And she gives him a warning. She tells him that the antlers of his office, the symbol of his chieftainship, are not his own. They are entrusted to him by the women of his clan, and the women can take them back. This is the most remarkable aspect of the system. The power to appoint is also the power to depose. This is not a job for life, unless you do it well. The clan mother and her council of women act as a permanent oversight committee. They watch the chief's conduct closely. Does he attend all the council meetings? Does he represent their interests faithfully? Has he become arrogant or self-serving? Is he listening? If the chief begins to stray from the path of a good leader, the women will act. The process of dehorning, or impeachment, is also carefully structured. It's not a hasty coup. The clan mother will first send a messenger, usually another woman, to speak with him privately, to warn him of his misconduct and give him a chance to change his ways. It's the Haudenosaunee equivalent of a formal written warning. If he does not heed the first warning, she sends a male warrior to deliver a second, more forceful message. If he still fails to reform, the clan mother herself will go to him, in front of the entire clan council, and publicly rebuke him. If he survives that level of public shaming and still doesn't get the message, she has one final option. She will strip him of his office, take back the symbolic antlers, and cast him out. He becomes an ordinary man again, his name and title given to another. This power of impeachment is not theoretical. It was used. It ensured that the male leaders remained accountable to the people they served, and specifically to the women who appointed them. It is a political structure of astonishing balance, where the men hold the public-facing positions of authority, but that authority is granted, defined, and can be revoked by the women. You, as a young person watching this intricate dance of power, are learning a fundamental lesson. True authority doesn't come from a crown or a sword. It comes from the trust of your community. And in your world, that trust is nurtured, judged, and ultimately controlled by the keepers of the longhouse. As the seasons turn, you grow more deeply into the rhythms of your community. The political power you've seen the clan mothers wield is abstract, a matter of councils and ceremonies. But now you begin to understand its tangible, undeniable source. It lies in the earth beneath your feet. It lies in the fields that surround your village. It lies in the food that fills the pots over the longhouse fires. Step out of the longhouse into the bright, warm sunlight of late spring. The world is bursting with green, with new life. You walk with your mother and aunts, past the palisade walls, to the vast agricultural fields that are the lifeblood of your people. This is your domain. The fields, like the longhouse, are controlled by the women. Men cleared this land. They did the heavy, back-breaking work of felling the great trees and burning the brush. But once cleared, the land belongs to the women of the clan. It is they who decide what to plant, when to plant, and how the harvest will be distributed. You're part of a women's agricultural collective, a farming cooperative that has existed for centuries. Your mother gives you a pouch of seeds. You dip your hand in and feel the smooth, hard kernels of corn, the slick surface of bean seeds, the rough edges of squash seeds. These are not just seeds. They are a sacred trust, a gift from the Creator. They are the three sisters. You learn the story as you work. The story tells of how these three plants are inseparable, how they love each other and help each other grow. You don't plant them in neat, separate rows like a European farmer might. That is not their way. You plant them together, in small mounds of earth. First, you place several corn kernels in the center of the mound. As the corn stalk grows tall and strong, it creates a natural pole. Then, you plant the bean seeds around the corn. The bean vines, seeking the sun, will climb the corn stalk for support. And as they grow, the beans do something miraculous for the soil. They pull nitrogen from the air and fix it in the ground, providing essential nutrients that the hungry corn needs. Finally, you plant the squash seeds around the edge of the mound. The broad, sprawling leaves of the squash plant spread out like a living carpet. This provides a natural mulch, keeping the soil moist, preventing weeds from growing, and its prickly vines deter pests like raccoons and deer. It's a perfect symbiotic relationship. The corn provides the support, the beans provide the nourishment, and the squash provides the protection. They are stronger together than they could ever be apart. It's not just a clever agricultural technique. It is a profound philosophical and political metaphor for your entire society. It is the model for the Haudenosaunee Confederacy itself, different nations supporting and protecting each other to create a stronger whole. All summer long, you work in the fields alongside the other women and girls. It is hard work, done with simple tools of wood and bone. But it is also a social time. You sing work songs that make the labor feel lighter. You share gossip. You listen to the older women tell stories. The fields are a place of community, of shared purpose. A mainstream historical fact is the sheer scale and productivity of Haudenosaunee agriculture. Early European explorers were consistently astonished by the vastness of the fields and the enormous reserves of food stored in the villages. Some accounts describe granaries holding enough corn to feed a village for several years. This agricultural surplus was the foundation of Haudenosaunee power, wealth, and stability, and it was entirely in the hands of the women. This control over the food supply is the ultimate source of female power. It is not symbolic, It is practical and absolute. The men are the hunters, and the meat they bring back is highly valued. But venison is feast or famine. The dried corn, beans, and squash stored in the longhouse granaries. This is the daily bread, the reliable sustenance that gets you through the long, cold winters. Without it, everyone starves. Because you and the other women control the food, you control the household. You control the economy. And you control the military. Think about that last one. How can a group of farmers control the army? It's quite simple. A war party cannot go on a campaign without provisions. And the women are the quartermasters. The men may decide they want to go to war. The male chiefs may debate the strategy. But it is the council of women, led by the clan mother, who must agree to supply the warriors with the pounded corn, dried meat, and other supplies they need for the journey. If the women believe the reason for a war is unjust, or the timing is poor, or the plan is foolish, they can simply refuse to provision the party. It is the ultimate veto power. No food, no war. It's a far more effective anti-war protest than waving a sign. It's like a military contractor going on strike the day before a major operation. This power ensures that the decision to go to war is never taken lightly and must have the broad support of the community as a whole, as represented by the women who are its life givers. Your power also extends to daily life and justice. Within the longhouse, it is the women who control the distribution of food. A man who is lazy, abusive, or fails in his duties to the family might find his dinner bowl a little less full. In a more serious case of a man mistreating his wife, she has the ultimate recourse. Since she and her female relatives own the longhouse and everything in it, she can simply put his belongings outside the door. There is no messy legal battle. It is a divorce, Haudenosaunee style. He must return to his mother's longhouse in shame. You also have a say in matters of justice and diplomacy. A quirky fringe tidbit of this culture is the role women played in determining the fate of captives taken in war. While the men were the warriors, the women often had the final say on whether a captive would be executed, adopted into the clan to replace a deceased member, or held for ransom. Adopting a former enemy into your family to fill the space of a lost son or brother was a common practice, a way of requickening the spirit of the dead and maintaining the strength of the clan. This decision was largely up to the women of the mourning family. As the harvest comes, the fields are a scene of joyful communal labor. You work together to bring in the corn, the beans, the squash. The bounty is enormous. The food is not divided up into individual family plots. It all goes into the clan's collective granary. From there, the clan mother and her council will oversee its distribution throughout the year, ensuring that every family in the longhouse has enough. There is no private hoarding of food. The wealth of the harvest belongs to everyone. As you sit in the longhouse that evening, eating a hearty stew made from the first of the harvest, you feel a deep sense of security and pride. You are not just a passive recipient of your culture. You are an active participant in its most essential functions. You have worked the land. You have helped bring in the food that will sustain your people. You understand, in your very bones, that the power of the Haudenosaunee is not in the warrior's club or the chief's oratory. It is in the kernel of corn, the climbing bean, the sheltering squash. It is in the hands of the women who cultivate them. The years pass as peacefully as the smoke drifting up from the longhouse roof. You have grown into your role, your responsibilities. You understand the delicate, intricate balance that holds your world together. The men speak in the great councils, their voices carrying the decisions of the people to the outside world. But their words are shaped by the women who selected them, who feed them, and who watch them with patient, discerning eyes. It is a system designed not for speed or efficiency, but for harmony and stability. But now, a new sound begins to echo through the great forests. It is the sound of steel axes, the clang of iron pots, the cadence of languages you do not understand. A new people have arrived on your shores. The Europeans. At first, their presence is a curiosity, a source of new and wonderful trade goods. You marvel at the sharpness of a metal knife, the warmth of a wool blanket, the vibrant color of glass beads. Your people engage in trade, in diplomacy, in cautious alliances. But as their numbers grow, you begin to see that their world is structured in a profoundly different way. You watch their women. They seem to have no voice. They do not speak in their councils. They do not own the land or the houses they live in. Upon marriage, their property, their identity, even their own bodies, seem to become the possession of their husbands. To you, this is a shocking and unnatural state of affairs. You see these women, often burdened with endless work and treated as subordinates, and you feel a sense of confusion and perhaps pity. Their world seems dangerously out of balance. The arrival of the Europeans, and later the Americans, puts immense pressure on your way of life. They bring new diseases that devastate your communities. They bring a new religion that tells you your beliefs are savage and your social structure is backwards. They bring an insatiable hunger for land that cannot be satisfied. Christian missionaries, in particular, are often horrified by the power of Haudenosaunee women. They see a world turned upside down, a petticoat government that defies the God-given authority of men. They actively work to undermine it, insisting that men should be the heads of households and that inheritance should pass from father to son. Despite these immense pressures, the core principles of Haudenosaunee governance endure. The Confederacy itself, the great law of peace, survives war, disease, and displacement. And the central role of women, though eroded and challenged, is never extinguished. The clan mothers continue to meet, to maintain the ancestral titles, and to guide their people. Now let us drift forward in time, far beyond the smoky confines of the Longhouse. The world has changed utterly. The great forests have been replaced by cities and farms. The United States of America has been born, a new nation founded on ideals of liberty and democracy. But for the women of this new nation, that liberty is incomplete. It is the 19th century. You are in Seneca Falls, New York, a small town in the heart of what was once the territory of the Seneca and Cayuga nations. You are an early American feminist, a woman like Elizabeth Cady Stanton or Matilda Joslyn Gage. You are fighting for the right to vote, the right to own property, the right to have a legal identity separate from your husband. To many in your society, your ideas are radical, dangerous, even insane. But you are living side by side with the descendants of the Haudenosaunee. Their reservations are islands in the sea of American settlement. And you begin to look at your neighbors not as savages in need of civilizing, but as something else entirely, a blueprint for a different kind of world. You talk with Haudenosaunee women. You attend their festivals. You learn about their social structure, and you are stunned by what you find. You see women who have a political voice, who can choose and depose their own leaders. You see women who have complete control over their own property. You see women who have authority within their families, who can divorce a husband at will and retain custody of their children. You see a world where domestic violence is almost unheard of because women have the power and communal support to prevent it. In short, you see women who possess the very rights you are fighting and bleeding for. A mainstream historical fact that is often overlooked is the direct influence of the Haudenosaunee model on the nascent American women's suffrage movement. Matilda Joslyn Gage, one of the three mothers of the movement alongside Stanton and Susan B. Anthony, wrote extensively about it. She argued that the history of women's rights didn't begin in Europe. It began here, in America, with the indigenous nations. She wrote, "Never was justice more perfect, never was civilization higher than under the matriarchate." To her, the Haudenosaunee were not a relic of a primitive past, but a vision of a more just and equitable future. She and other feminists pointed to the Haudenosaunee system as living proof that a society could function perfectly well, and perhaps even better, when women held real political and economic power. It was not a theoretical utopia, it was a reality, right in their own backyard. It gave them a powerful counter-argument to the endless claims that giving women rights would lead to the collapse of the family and society. They could simply point to their Haudenosaunee neighbors and say, "Look, it works." Historians still argue about the depth and breadth of this influence. Some see it as a central, galvanizing force for the early feminists, while others view it as a more marginal inspiration, one of many ideas they drew upon. But the written words of women like Gage leave little doubt that they were looking, listening, and learning. You, as one of these pioneering feminists, feel emboldened. The Haudenosaunee model gives you a language and a precedent for your own struggle. The fight is no longer about inventing a new role for women, but about reclaiming a level of autonomy and authority that was once considered normal on this very continent. The concept of a matriarchy was not just a historical curiosity for you, it was a political tool. As you stand on a podium at a convention for women's rights, your voice shaking but resolute, you might think back to the image of the Longhouse. You might speak of a world where a woman's home is truly her own, where she has the final say over the food that feeds her family, and where she has the power to place the antlers of leadership on a man's head and to take them away. You are fighting to build a new house for American women, and you are using an ancient Haudenosaunee blueprint. Let the image of the suffragist fade. Return one last time to the quiet of the forest, to the scent of the wood smoke. The world you have journeyed through, the world of the Haudenosaunee women, was not a perfect utopia. It was a human society, with its own struggles and complexities. But it was a world built on a profound idea, that a society is strongest when it is in balance. Balance between men and women, between humans and nature, between the individual and the community. The clan mothers, in their wisdom, knew that true power was not about domination, but about stewardship. They were the keepers of the fire, the keepers of the food, the keepers of the children, and the keepers of the peace. They governed not with a scepter, but with a stirring spoon. They ruled not from a throne, but from the earthen floor of the longhouse. And in doing so, they created one of the most stable, equitable, and enduring democracies the world has ever known. Forgotten hairstyling techniques of the Roman Empire. Breathe slowly. Let the edges of your day begin to soften. We are not traveling far tonight, just drifting back through the quiet veil of years, to a world built of marble and ambition. Our journey begins with the gentle light of a new day, in a place you know as Rome. You awaken not to a jarring alarm, but to the gradual brightening of the room. Sunlight, soft and golden, filters through a high, unglazed window, illuminating the dust motes dancing in the air like tiny, silent sprites. You are lying on a daybed in your cubiculum, your sleeping chamber. The air is cool and still, carrying the faint, pleasant scent of lavender from the herbs scattered on the mosaic floor to sweeten the air. You stretch, the linen sheets cool against your skin. Your eyes drift over the walls, not to a blank expanse of beige, but to a world of painted stories. A vibrant fresco depicts the myth of Narcissus, who stares endlessly at his own reflection in a pool of water. A gentle, perhaps ironic, reminder for the day ahead. The sounds of the villa are beginning to stir. Muffled voices from the kitchens, the distant clatter of pottery, the soft sweeping of a broom in the peristyle garden outside your door. It is the gentle symphony of a large, wealthy household waking up. There is no rush. Your day will not begin in earnest until you are ready to face it, and you cannot face it until your hair is done. A soft knock at the door, almost a whisper. You call out your permission, and the door opens. She enters, a young woman, perhaps still in her teens, with a quiet efficiency that speaks of years of practice. This is your ornatrix, your personal hairdresser and stylist. She is an enslaved girl, likely from Greece, bought for her deft fingers and artistic eye. Her name is Lyra. She carries no large, clattering trolley, no bag overflowing with branded products. Her entire arsenal is contained in a carved wooden box, which she places gently on a small table beside your chair. You move from the bed to a sturdy wooden chair with an elegantly carved back. Another servant girl brings in a mirror, a disc of highly polished bronze, and holds it for you. The reflection is dim, moody, a soft-focus version of yourself. It doesn't show every pore and flaw, for which you are profoundly grateful. In it, you see your hair, long and unbound from the simple braid you wore to sleep. It is a blank canvas. Lyra opens her box. She does not begin with sprays and mousses. She begins with the most fundamental of tools, the comb. She lays out several pectins, each for a different purpose. There is a large, sturdy one of boxwood, its teeth wide apart, for the initial, gentle detangling. There's a finer one of bone, for smoothing. And her most prized, a beautiful comb carved from ivory, a gift from your husband after a profitable trip to Egypt. A mainstream historical fact of Roman life is that the ornatrix was a highly specialized and valuable member of an elite household slave staff. A woman of your status would no more do her own hair than she would cook her own dinner. Lyra begins to comb, her movements practiced and sure. She works from the ends upward, slowly, patiently, ensuring not a single strand is broken. The process is slow, meditative. The rhythmic pull of the comb through your long hair is deeply soothing. This is the foundation of every style, a simple, unhurried combing. You close your eyes, listening to the quiet sounds of the room. The relationship between a domina and her ornatrix is a complex one. She is your property, and yet you spend hours with her every day in this state of quiet intimacy. She knows your moods, the texture of your hair, perhaps even some of your secrets. Historians still argue whether these skilled women were seen merely as living tools, or if their artistry and proximity to the lady of the house afforded them a unique, trusted status, making them confidants as much as servants. Looking at Lyra's focused, serious expression in the bronze mirror, you feel it is likely a complicated mixture of both. Once your hair is perfectly smooth, the real work begins. Lyra turns to the brazier of hot coals another servant has brought in. Her next tool is the calamistrum. It is essentially a curling iron, but it is a fearsome thing. It's a hollow iron tube into which a solid metal rod, the forceps, is inserted after being heated in the glowing embers. There is no temperature control, no automatic shutoff. There is only Lyra's skill, her sense of timing, her ability to judge the heat of the metal by a glance and a prayer. Getting it wrong means a singed patch of hair, or worse, a burn on your scalp or ear. It's like styling your hair with a branding iron, and it makes you appreciate Lyra's steady hand immensely. She works with intense concentration, taking small sections of hair, wrapping them around the heated tube, holding for a few moments, and then releasing a perfect, tight curl. The air fills with the faint, metallic, slightly alarming smell of hot hair. She is creating the raw materials, the building blocks for the architectural wonder to come. While she works, you might glance at the other items laid out from her box. There are small terracotta pots containing various lotions and setting agents. This is where things get truly organic. A quirky tidbit from the writings of Pliny the Elder and others reveals a pharmacopoeia of ancient hair products that would make a modern stylist recoil. There were recipes for hair growth involving bear grease and crushed mice. A lotion of wine and myrrh might be used for shine. To combat gray hairs, a truly horrifying paste made of boiled leeches and earthworms was sometimes prescribed. Thankfully, Lyra is using a simple, pleasantly scented oil made from olives and rose petals today. It's all natural, locally sourced, and completely worm-free, a small luxury you appreciate. Finally, Lyra lays out the last component of her toolkit, the pins. An arsenal of acus crenales, or hairpins. They are laid out on a piece of linen, like a surgeon's instruments. Most are simple, sharp shafts of polished bone, about the length of your finger. Others are bronze or silver. A few are works of art in themselves, their heads carved into the shape of the goddess Venus, a tiny bird, or a clenched fist. These are not just decorative. They are the nails, the rivets, the scaffolding that will hold the entire elaborate structure together. She has finished with the curling. Your hair is now a cascade of tight, springy ringlets. The preparation is complete. You look at the patient young woman in the mirror, her tools all laid out, her mind already working on the structure she is about to build. You are not just a woman getting her hair done. You are the patron of a work of art. The marble is quarried, the clay is thrown. The artist is ready to begin. The morning sun has climbed higher in the sky, and the air in your cubiculum has grown warmer. The scent of hot metal from the calamistrum has faded, replaced by the delicate fragrance of the rose oil Lyra has smoothed through your newly curled hair. The foundation is laid. Your hair, once a simple, straight fall of brown, is now a cloud of ringlets, ready to be shaped. But today, you desire something more. Something different. Something blonde. You are a Roman woman of the early empire, and while your poets may praise the simple, rustic beauty of the past, your reality is all about fashionable artifice. And nothing is more fashionable, more exotic, more thrillingly non-Roman than fair hair. The women of the north, the Gauls, the Germans, the ones your husband's legions are either conquering or fighting, are said to have hair the color of sun-bleached wheat and honey. It is the color of the barbarian, the color of the other, and therefore it is the height of chic. Lyra, your ornatrix, understands this desire completely. She puts away her curling tongs and turns to a different section of her wooden box. She pulls out several small, lidded clay pots. This is the domain of the colorator, the specialist in dyes. Sometimes this was a separate slave, but a truly skilled ornatrix like Lyra has mastered all the arts of the coiffure. Achieving a convincing blonde is a messy, complicated, and often deeply unpleasant business. There is no simple bottle of peroxide, no gentle lightening cream. The Roman methods are potent and pungent. The most common bleaching agent is a concoction known as sapo. A mainstream historical fact is that this sapo was a soap-like substance the Romans imported from Gaul and Germania. It was made from goat fat, tallow, and the ashes of beechwood or birchwood trees. It was primarily used by Germanic tribesmen to style their hair into fearsome, bright red spikes, but Roman women discovered that, if left on the hair in the sun, it had a remarkable lightening effect. Lyra begins to work the thick, greasy paste through your hair. It has a strong, smoky, animal smell that is not entirely pleasant. It feels heavy and cloying. Once every strand is saturated, you must go outside. You cannot simply sit in the garden. For the best effect, you need to be on the roof. You walk up the narrow stairs to the solarium, the flat, sun-baked rooftop terrace of your villa. Here, another servant has arranged a comfortable couch for you. To protect your face from the harsh Roman sun, A tan is considered dreadfully common, the mark of a laborer who works in the fields. You wear a wide-brimmed straw hat called a petasus. Or perhaps you use a popular form of sunscreen, a thick paste of crocodile dung, which you hope does a better job of blocking the sun than it does of making you popular at parties. But the hat has a special feature for today's purpose. The top of the crown is cut out. You lie back, your hair spread out over the edges of the hat, fully exposed to the relentless glare of the sun. The sapo paste begins to warm and melt. You can feel the chemical reaction taking place. Now you simply wait. For hours. It is a slow, tedious, and slightly smelly process. You might doze, listen to a slave read poetry to you, or simply watch the clouds drift by. It's the ancient equivalent of sitting under a salon dryer with a head full of foils, except your dryer is the sun and your foils are made of goat grease. If you desired red hair, the process would be different. Lyra would use powdered henna, imported from Egypt, mixed into a paste. For a deep, glossy black, to cover the first hints of gray, she might use a truly horrifying mixture. One recipe involved taking black leeches, putting them in a lead vessel with wine, and letting them rot for 2 months. The resulting black sludge would be carefully painted onto the hair. Looking at the options, you decide the smelly goat fat blonde is definitely the lesser of several evils. After several hours under the sun, your hair is declared ready. You return to your chamber, where Lyra carefully washes the sapo out with several rinses of warm water. The result is variable. Sometimes it is a beautiful, sunny blonde. Other times it is a brassy reddish-orange. And over time, this harsh process will leave your hair dry, brittle, and damaged. This leads to the next stage in the quest for perfect hair, supplementation. For many women, especially those whose hair has been ravaged by dyes, or who simply weren't blessed with a thick mane to begin with, the answer is simple: buy more hair. Lyra opens another compartment in her box. Inside, carefully wrapped in soft linen, are switches of hair, braids, and entire wigs. This is the world of false hair, and Rome is a massive market for it. The most prized hair comes from Germany, the genuine blonde article, cut from the heads of captured slave women. Next best is the rich, red hair from Gaul. The dark, glossy black hair of India is also highly sought after for its texture and length. A quirky but fascinating tidbit is that the trade in human hair was a significant part of the Roman economy. Merchants would follow the legions, ready to buy the hair of captives to be shipped back to the capital's eager market. These hair pieces are called capillamenta. You might just need a small switch to add volume to a bun, or a long braid to weave into your own hair. Or you might go for a full wig, a gallerus. Some wigs were simple caps of hair, but the most elaborate were built on a mesh or leather base, with the hair already styled into complex patterns of curls and braids. You could put on an entire hairstyle in a matter of minutes. Historians still debate the social perception of wearing wigs and hairpieces. Was it seen as a slightly shameful secret, an admission of inadequacy like a modern toupee? Or was it an open and accepted part of fashion like wearing makeup? The evidence seems to suggest the latter. Poets like Ovid and Martial frequently joked about women whose hair and teeth and other body parts could be bought and removed at night. One epigram mocks a woman named Gala, telling her that when she passes a certain wig shop, all the German and Gaulish women whose hair she's wearing call out greetings to her. This suggests that everyone knew what was going on. The artifice was part of the point. Today, you do not need a full wig. Your hair, now a slightly brassy but acceptably lighter shade, is still healthy enough. But it lacks the sheer volume required for the style you have in mind. Lyra selects a few pre-curled switches that match your new color. These are not attached with clips or glue. They will be cleverly woven and pinned into your own hair, becoming an invisible part of the final structure. You sit patiently, head bowed slightly, as Lyra begins to integrate the false pieces with your natural hair. She is a master of this illusion. A pin here, a twist there. The process is slow and painstaking. She is not just adding length or volume. She is building a foundation, preparing the raw materials for the architectural feat that is to come. The color is achieved, the volume is enhanced. The canvas is now ready for the master's strokes. The most tedious parts of your morning ritual are now behind you. The dyeing, the waiting, the supplementing, all the preparatory work is complete. You now have a head full of hair, both real and imported, that is the correct color and of sufficient volume. Now the true artistry begins. Lyra's expression becomes even more focused. This is the part of her job that separates a mere servant from a true ornatrix. This is where she will build a sculpture on your head. The hairstyle you have chosen today is the height of Flavian dynasty fashion. It is a style made famous by the Empress Julia Flavia, daughter of the Emperor Titus. It is a statement. It says you are wealthy, fashionable, and have an immense amount of time and resources to dedicate to your appearance. It is the ancient Roman equivalent of carrying $1,000 handbag. The style is often called the orbis camerum, the circle of hair, and it is an architectural marvel of curls. Lyra begins by sectioning your hair. She takes the entire front portion, from your forehead to the crown of your head, and separates it. This will be the main structure. The hair at the back will be dealt with later. She works with the front section, combing it forward over your face. Then piece by piece, curl by curl, she begins to build upwards. She is not working on your head directly. Instead, she uses a wire frame, a sort of crescent-shaped scaffold called an arculum. This frame, made of lightweight bronze or shaped animal horn, will be the hidden support for the towering structure of curls. Historians still argue about the exact construction of these frames, as few have survived, but evidence from sculpture and painting suggests some kind of internal support was essential for the most elaborate styles. She pins this frame securely to the hair at the front of your scalp. Now, she begins to attach the curls to the frame. She takes one of the tight ringlets she created earlier with the calamistrum, a mix of your own hair and the supplemental pieces, and carefully pins it to the frame. Then she takes another, and another, and another. She is like a mason building a wall, brick by brick. Except her bricks are curls, and her mortar is an endless supply of fine, sharp bone pins. Her hands move with a speed and precision that is mesmerizing to watch in the bronze mirror. She layers the curls, creating a dense, high, crescent-shaped wall of hair that frames your face. It rises several inches above your forehead, a honey-blonde tiara of sculpted ringlets. It is ostentatious, impractical, and absolutely glorious. You have to keep your head very still. A sudden movement could cause the entire delicate structure to shift. While she works, you might reflect on the social importance of this process. A mainstream historical fact is that Roman portrait sculpture, especially of women, is one of our best sources for understanding hairstyles. When you commission a marble bust of yourself to be displayed in the family atrium, the sculptor will spend as much time and care rendering your elaborate coiffure as they do capturing your likeness. Your hairstyle is a key part of your identity, a marker of your social status and your awareness of current trends set by the imperial court. It signals that you belong to the sophisticated elite of the capital. The front section is now complete. A towering, immovable wall of blonde curls stands proud. But the back is still undone. Lyra gathers all the remaining hair at the back of your head, the long, straight lengths that were not curled. She combs it smooth, pulling it taut. Then, with a skill that seems almost magical, she twists and coils it into a series of intricate braids. These are not simple three-strand plaits. They are complex, interlocking patterns that form a small, tight bun, almost like a woven basket, at the nape of your neck. This braided bun serves as a visual and physical anchor for the extravagant display at the front. It is the elegant, restrained foundation that makes the glorious chaos of the curls possible. Finally, she adds the finishing touches. She takes a few of the most decorative hairpins, the Acus crenales with carved ivory heads, and inserts them into the braided bun at the back, where they can be seen when you turn your head. She might add a pearl-tipped pin or two to the front structure, like tiny, glistening stars in your hair. A final mist of water mixed with a light-setting lotion, perhaps quince seed mucilage, a popular ancient hairspray, is applied to hold everything in place. Lyra steps back to admire her work. She turns the bronze mirror so you can see the profile, the back. The transformation is complete. It has taken hours. It has involved heat, strange chemicals, imported hair, a wire frame, and hundreds of pins. Your head feels noticeably heavier. You have to carry yourself differently with a new, regal posture to keep the structure stable. Turning your head quickly is no longer an option. It is, in every way, a high-maintenance look. A quirky but illuminating detail from the period's literature is the poet Juvenal's satirical description of a Roman wife being punished by her husband for some offense. He doesn't have her beaten. Instead, he orders her ornatrix to be punished. The lady of the house wails in despair as her stylist is dragged away. What will become of my hair now? Who will arrange my curls? Juvenal then jokes that the stylist's crime was probably just that a single curl was out of place. This highlights the absolute life-or-death seriousness with which these styles were treated. It's satire, of course, but like all good satire, it's rooted in a recognizable truth. Your hair is not just hair. It is a performance, and your ornatrix is your most important stagehand. You look at the woman in the mirror. She looks powerful, imposing, a true Roman domina. Her hair is a testament to her station. It is a crown of her own making, or rather, of Lyra's making. You are now ready to begin your day, to receive visitors, to manage the household accounts, to be seen. And as you rise carefully from your chair, you make a mental note to be especially kind to Lyra. After all, she is the architect of your glory. The towering Flavian hairstyle you now wear is a monument to the peak of imperial power and confidence. But fashions, like empires, do not stand still. They evolve, they soften, and sometimes they crumble. As you move through your day, you see the changing world of Rome reflected not just in the women's coiffures, but in the faces of the men. Let us leave your villa for a moment and step into the bustling, noisy world of a Roman street. The air is thick with the smell of cooking food, cheap wine, and the ever-present odor of the Tiber. You are now observing the men. For most of Rome's history, from the Republic through the early Empire, the ideal Roman man was clean-shaven. A beard was the mark of a Greek philosopher, a rustic farmer, or a man in mourning. To be a clean-shaven, short-haired Roman was to be civilized. This daily ritual of shaving was a social necessity. You might see a wealthy man being shaved in his home by a personal slave, a skilled tonsure, or barber. But for most men, a trip to the local tunstrina, or barber shop, was a daily routine. Imagine one of these shops. It's a small, open-fronted space, probably in a corner of the forum or near the public baths. It is the male equivalent of a salon, a social hub buzzing with gossip, news, and political commentary. Men lounge on benches, waiting their turn, catching up on the day's events. It's like the coffee houses we visited in Istanbul, but with more sharp objects. The barber's tools are simple: a pair of iron shears for trimming, a bowl of water, some linen towels, and the most important tool, the novacula, a straight razor. These razors were made of bronze or iron, and keeping them sharp was a constant battle. A dull razor meant a painful shave, full of nicks and cuts. A good tonsure was prized for his steady hand and his sharp blades. The process was slow. Lather was minimal, sometimes just oil or water. The barber would stretch the skin taut and carefully scrape away the stubble. Small cuts were common, and were usually treated with a dab of spiderweb, which was thought to have styptic properties. Getting your daily shave was a small act of bravery. But now a great change is coming. In the 2nd century CE, the Emperor Hadrian comes to power. Hadrian is a true intellectual, a lover of all things Greek, and he wears a beard. This is a seismic shift in Roman fashion. The emperor, the ultimate trendsetter, has adopted the philosopher's beard. A mainstream historical fact is that with Hadrian, the beard becomes not just acceptable, but fashionable for the Roman elite. The official reason given was that he wore it to hide some scars on his face, but its Hellenistic connotations were unmistakable. Suddenly, the clean-shaven look of Augustus and Titus seems old-fashioned. Young men across the empire begin to cultivate their beards. Barbers, who for centuries had specialized in shaving, now have to become experts in trimming, shaping, and oiling beards. The neat, curly beard of Hadrian becomes the new ideal. As you look around at the men on the street, you see this change happening. The older senators and traditionalists are still smooth-cheeked, but the younger, more fashionable men are sporting carefully groomed beards. It is a visible sign of a cultural shift, a move away from the old, austere Roman identity towards a more cosmopolitan, Greco-Roman ideal. Let's return to your villa. The day is ending. You have navigated your social duties, your head held high. It is time to dismantle the magnificent structure Lyra built this morning. The process of taking down the hairstyle is almost as painstaking as putting it up. Lyra carefully removes each pin, one by one, laying them back in her wooden box. The false hair pieces are detached, combed, and carefully stored for their next use. The wire frame is lifted away. Finally, your own hair is released, and you can feel the lightness, the relief. You might reflect on how your hairstyle will change as you age. The towering styles of youth will give way to more modest coiffures. As a respected matron, you might adopt the tutulus, a simple, conical style where the hair is piled high on the head and bound with woolen fillets. This was a very ancient style, associated with the priestesses of Vesta and the traditional role of the Roman wife. It was a symbol of modesty and dignity. The styles of the empresses continued to evolve after the Flavians. Trajan's wife, Plotina, favored a more subdued but still complex style with a high crescent of braids. The empresses of the Severan dynasty in the early 3rd century, like Julia Domna, wore remarkable wigs styled in helmet-like, symmetrical waves that covered the ears. A quirky fringe tidbit from this later period is that these elaborate wigs were sometimes called gallery, the same name used for the helmets worn by Roman priests, suggesting a semi-divine or ceremonial quality to the empress's appearance. But as the empire enters its later period, the so-called crisis of the 3rd century, things begin to change more dramatically. The empire is beset by civil wars, economic collapse, and barbarian invasions. In this climate of insecurity and turmoil, the elaborate, time-consuming hairstyles of the past begin to seem frivolous, even decadent. There is simply less time, less money, and less stability for such displays. Portrait sculptures from this era show a marked simplification in hairstyles for both men and women. The men adopt short, military-style crew cuts, reflecting the new reality of an empire dominated by soldier emperors. The women's styles become much simpler, often just a single braid coiled at the back of the head, sometimes covered with a net or a veil. The intricate architecture of curls and braids gives way to a more practical, austere look. The state of the empire is written on the heads of its people. As Lyra finishes brushing out your hair for the night, twisting it into a simple braid for sleeping, you look into the bronze mirror one last time. The powerful domina with the crown of curls is gone. In her place is a simpler, more private version of yourself. You have journeyed through a day of Roman beauty, from the simple comb to the complex imperial coiffure. You have seen how a hairstyle is never just a hairstyle. It is a statement of identity, a marker of status, a reflection of the times, and a work of art, created every single day by the silent, steady hands of a woman like Lyra. And as you lay your head down to sleep, you can finally relax, knowing that tomorrow, she will be there to build it all over again.